Alrighty, folks, welcome on into the Central Committee stream with your host, Mike from PA. We are live once again, and it is a beautiful day. Hair is a little, we're having a bad hair day. Tomorrow will be a good hair day. I'm declaring that. How is everybody doing this beautiful Tuesday, the brisk winter? How's everybody doing? I guess it's still fall. When does fall end? When does fall end? December 21st. Okay, it's still technically autumn. That's what I that's why I checked. I don't know why I said 21st, which is the solstice, obvious. I'm doing fantastic. The Medicare for All push is gaining steam, with Chris Van Hollen finally getting public with his advocacy for the policy. Very clear to me. I want to just say this because I could already see this happening. There is a election analyst called Edigermentum who is probably one of the most incompetent grifters I've seen in a while, unfortunately infecting our space. And he has been trying to shit on AOC for the better part of his entire time being retweeted by people. And I think he's cycled through Gretchen Whitmer, Andy Bashir. I think he's pushing Gavin Newsom as like a top tier candidate. The guy is dumb and he doesn't know anything about dick. Okay. And listen, Chris Van Hollen, I'm glad he's coming in our direction on a few policies that are anyone with a conscience could have, but he is no way representative of the left. Okay, like, I'm not saying that we need to shit on the guy, and I think we should critically support him, but he's not of us. And if you in any way prefer Chris Van Hollen over AOC, you're a fucking dummy. Like, literally, you do not know what you're talking about, and you should be embarrassed. Like, actually. Now, it doesn't mean that I dislike that Chris Van Hollen is doing good stuff on the genocide or is supporting Medicare for All. He in no way is a leftist, okay? He's not on our team. Maybe he's an ally. Maybe he's getting better, and I want to encourage that. I'm not saying shit on the guy. I am saying that, however, if you are trying to be an electoral analyst and you're like, oh yeah, Chris Van Hollen's good, get your shit together. What about leader? I could see him as a good majority leader. That, like, I think he would be a nice majority leader. That might make more sense. There are multiple definitions of winter. Meteorological winter started December 1st. And there are the traditional Irish seasons. If you go by the amount of solaration, winter technically starts around November 1st. I mean, thank you, Nicole. That's actually really interesting. And I agree. I think most of us consider December to be winter weather, right? Because it's cold and getting colder. Mike, no one is talking about this expanded travel ban. Yeah, because Democrats don't do anything. And we're going to get into that. Basically, Hakeem Jeffries is working to contain fallout from illegal boat strikes. Basically, Hakeem Jeffries, and like, I don't know what to say other than, you know, I really think that Zoran and AOC giving cover to this guy is basically collaborationism, and it's a major mistake. It's such a major mistake that it causes me a little bit of cognitive dissonance, because it's like, how could you be this stupid? He's that bad. He is the worst leader we could ever possibly have. How the fuck are you guys going to attack the establishment and then say, oh no, we want him to be speaker? What are you doing? It's shocking. And like, I know why it's happening. I just think oh, this sucks, chat. This actually sucks. Francesca has got a real opponent that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be very tough to beat. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, obviously, I'm going to keep supporting Francesca for now. Obviously, she's awesome. But this sucks. And it makes sense. I mean, why wouldn't he do it? Like, nobody had really any name recognition. So Mandela Barnes, progressive candidate for Senate in Wisconsin, who lost by a couple percent, or like lost by, I'm sorry, less than 1% because the DNC cut him off, is just announced his run for governor of Wisconsin.
This is my dad's jacket. UAW, Local 1866. He wore it everywhere because being a part of a union wasn't just a job. It meant you looked out for each other. It meant you had each other's backs. And back then, those were jobs that could afford you a home, support a family, and save for retirement. That's not the case anymore. Seems like the harder you work, the more Washington looks the other way. Lower taxes for billionaires, higher prices for...
What the fuck? Why is it... Oh my God. I'm sorry, Chad. I had my wrong monitor selected. Thank God there was nothing embarrassing on the other monitor. I don't know. How the fuck did that happen? You guys were watching the videos on this monitor. I don't know what... I don't know.
And people. Under Trump, the name of the game has been distraction and chaos to avoid accountability. It's not about the real world. It's a show. Outrage. Performances. Everybody trying to go viral. Meanwhile, families doing everything right are still falling behind. So here's the reality check. The only way for our state to move forward is to reject the Washington way and get things done the Wisconsin way. It isn't about left or right. It's not about who can yell the loudest. It's about whether people can afford to live in the state they call home. A state where you can afford your health care, where your kids can learn a skill and stay close to home, where a good day's work earns a good day's pay, and where families can not only get by, but thrive. I'm Mandela Barnes. I've served Wisconsin in our legislature and as your lieutenant governor. I know how to bring people together, and I know how to get things done. I'm running for governor because this jacket wasn't just something my dad wore. It was a promise. We show up, we look out for each other. Wisconsin, let's get to work.
Say, like, I gotta say, from my point of view, it's very underwhelming video. Very Democrat, just like very Democrat, not even really giving any progressive. Do you know why AOC refuses to get the rest of the squad to commit blocking Jeffries from getting leader if Devs take back the House? Everyone is mad as fucking so wrong, but AOC, I mean, it is AOC and Bernie that are, I don't know how else to put it. AOC and Bernie have this like calculation where their personalities and relationships are going to result in some sort of good outcome and there is no evidence that has happened even a single time. So it's like, I don't know if it's cope. I don't know if it's like ego protection or if it's corruption. And it doesn't seem to me to be corruption. Like they're just wrong on this. I don't know what else to say. And maybe you consider that arrogant for me to say, but they're just wrong on this. The concepts of the squad is an illusion. They aren't a collective. They don't call themselves that. AOC is working with Bernie, and that's that. I mean, you're correct. There really is no squad. That was a media creation. And they do agree on a lot, and they tend to be more left-wing members. That's absolutely true. But the story that I want to start us off with, chat, is Hakeem Jeffries is a fucking idiot. And I mean this. He's a complete fucking moron. I tweeted it right before I went live. And it is kind of embarrassing. Like, it really is embarrassing. Even Republicans have started to come out and say how uncomfortable they are with these boat strikes, especially possibly attacking survivors of the attacks, killing people in the water, clinging to rubble or a life preserver. And here's Jeffries says not to expect Debs to pursue Hegseth impeachment. So the guy blatantly violates the 1907 like Geneva Conventions, like shit that existed prior to World War I. And he's saying, no, we're not going to impeach. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries signaled Monday that Democrats are unlikely to pursue impeachment against Hegseth over alleged follow-up strikes against boats in the Caribbean. Impeachment has been a fraught subject for Democrats this year with... This is a new event, you fucking dummy! You stupid piece of shit! God, you are such a loser! You're such a dumb piece of shit! You're such a fucking fraud! How did these worms get up in the middle of the night and not just piss their pants? What the fuck are you talking about? This year, this just happened, you dumbass! What, could he molest a child and he would say no, Republicans control both houses? I mean, I guess that's not, why did I bring that up? Of course they would love that. That's half the fucking Democratic establishment. What am I talking about? Why do I think there's anything that could happen that these Democrats are ever gonna? They never will. They never will. They never will. They could detonate a nuclear bomb in the middle of fucking LA and this guy would not pursue impeachment. He is a fucking worm. There's nothing. He's got nothing. Why are you even there? Why are you even there? You're not even getting, like, you're not even important. People don't like you. You're not getting positive attention. You're not really famous. Outside of people that are forced to know who you are because they care about politics. What's going on here? Go quit. Get your lobbying job. What's taking so long? Don't worry. Jeffries is here to smash all momentum to resist Trump. Supporting this man is like, this is fucking nuts. This is nuts. This is nuts. The Democrats should be saying, I don't care if one Republican votes for it or not. Violating the Geneva Conventions brazenly on civilians is a bridge too far. Make the Republicans defend it, you fucking worm. Make the Republicans say, get rid of the Geneva Conventions. Make them say that, you fucking worm. Go on the offense once, you pathetic fucking worm. I don't want to be talking about you. I don't want to be screaming that you're a worm. I don't want to be saying the Democratic establishment is pathetic. But you make it impossible for us to say anything else. And like, what is this? Like, people will say that I just say Democrats bad, right? But I don't want to say that. The thing is, I'm so easy to please. It's pathetic how easy to please I am. It is pathetic how easy to please I am. But this guy cannot bat 100, not 1,000, 100. 1 in 10 times he goes up to the plate, he gets some contact on the ball. The guy is a fucking loser. He's a loser. He's a born fucking loser. And he's got no charisma. Why the fuck? What is going on? Like, I legitimately need to hear some arguments here. And I how do I say this? That I'm trying really hard not to be uncomradely. But there is a population of people in the DSA that basically just want to get a job as DNC consultants, but for progressives. All right, that's really what it is. God, and it goes back to these people hiring their friends to work at DSA at jobs that we don't need paid staff to do. It's because they're looking to make themselves work where they get paid. They're trying to make DSA into another fucking nonprofit, pays out friends. Let's be honest about what these right-wing DSA caucuses do, which is why I have not aligned myself with them, because I don't trust the people. Like, that's just point blank the reality. Have you read Mugg's critique of sewer socialism? No. I think that when people don't know what something is and they just start throwing out blatant accusations without actually any evidence of it, it makes me really not want to read their shit. Especially when libidpol is the first punch. It's like, oh, okay. So that's great. War crimes, America committing it, and even like Republicans are kind of like, ew, like maybe this is too far. There's Jeffries there to kill the momentum.
Really, it's very interesting. Britt Hume proving once again.
Should I join PSL or DSA? I'm going to say that I need to get more involved in DSA. I need to get more involved in DSA, if I'm being completely honest. I'm just burned the fuck out, and I know it's just going to be another fucking. It just gets tiring getting fucking slandered so fucking often. It does get tiring. I'm not gonna lie. So, but I try to organize this community, but I just need to. I need to have a geographic base, because there's no good leadership, if I'm being completely honest.
And that the administration, like in the Epstein files, finds themselves in a position where they're not fighting lefties, right? They're not going up against the most progressive voices in America, people they can call communists or Marxists. It is Fox News contributors. It is Andy McCarthy saying, no. This new excuse of pointing, at somebody else. No, this is inconsistent with what you've said before. Or Britt Hume saying this is what pointing the finger at somebody else looks like, when of course this all comes down to Pete Hegseth. We're going to be showing clips of him bragging time and time again about getting rid of those politically correct rules of engagement. We're there to kill. And I think most damningly, and this is just where the stupidity, to have a strike on September 2nd, go on Fox and Friends September 3rd, to brag that you were there from beginning to end, and you saw the attacks beginning to end, the first attack, the second, and that it was all on you. It was all on you. I'm the He-Man that carried out that strike. I mean, he again, this is something that, this is far worse than Signalgate, because Signalgate was, that was bad too. That was really bad.
It was
in this case, though,
celebrational aspect of it.
If you're Donald Trump, you don't want anything to do with this war crime that more and more conservatives, more and more Republicans, not lefties, Republicans, are saying it's deeply disturbing. This alleged war crime. It is frightening.
And President Trump on Air Force One said, "I wouldn't have ordered the second strike."
No.
He understands what's going on here. And a good barometer always is congressional Republicans. And you listen to them, even the ones who've defended Donald Trump on some of his worst moments, saying the most gracious you can hear is, well, let's wait till all the facts come out. They're not racing to defend him, most of them. And others are saying we need to launch a full investigation. We need to have hearings on this. This is deadly serious. This is a potential war crime. And you're right, the White House is caught in this moment right now where they're saying, well, yes, Defense Secretary Hegseth.
As I said yesterday, this is just par for the course for the Democrats, right? The strikes on the fishermen were illegal on their face, right? But now they did something even more heinous. And so the Democrats are letting the first strikes go because they want to focus on the thing that's even more heinous, thereby allowing the Republicans to normalize these strikes as like, the strikes are one thing, but attacking the shipwreck, that's really bad. And they've effectively allowed illegal murder strikes to occur. Fucking Democrat centrism is so feckless and pointless. What's even the point of all this? This is one of the things that actually bums me out, is like, what is the point of this? So you could wear your little suit and put too much gel in your hair? So you could sit in front of a green screen and feel important? What is going on here? What is the point of this? What is the point of your politics, man? What is this? What is this show? Why are you doing it? It's embarrassing.
Did order the second strike, but not to kill the people, just to disable the boat. The decision to kill the people, allegedly, is that of Admiral Bradley, a decorated admiral.
Just, if you want to stop the boat, just sail next to them with a Coast Guard cutter and grab the boat. What's the big deal? Like, if you're so, or a high-speed interception craft, which they have many, and just pull alongside with a 50 cal and say, heave to, and then inspect the cargo, and if they have drugs, arrest them. That's called interdiction. Called law enforcement, right? What's the fucking problem with that? Oh, but we're not using we're not bombing and murdering people without a trial.
In the Navy. So that, to push that admiral in front of the bus is not going to end well, probably, for Defense Secretary Hegseth.
No.
He's in a bind. The White House is in a bind, as we'll see in a moment, as the press secretary yesterday did her best in a nearly impossible situation.
That was to watch. Along with,
but Mika, make no mistake. Right now, this is more Pete Hegseth's problem.
Yeah.
Donald Trump's problem. And for the people inside the White House that have been worried about his leadership from the beginning, for Republicans on Capitol Hill, who you can talk to Capitol Hill reporters will tell you that they look at Hegseth with absolute scorn.
And some already did.
They're willing, in this case, to give the president the benefit of the doubt that he didn't know about this second strike, but they're not going to give that benefit of the doubt to Pete Hegseth, nor will the National Review, nor will the Wall Street Journal, nor will Fox News legal analysts like Andy McCarthy, nor will a lot of conservatives who are offended by this.
Especially since he talked about it himself, Pete Hegseth, many times. Along with Joe, Willie, and me, we have the co-host of our 9 a.m. hour, staff writer at The Atlantic, Jonathan Lemire, and columnist and associate editor at The Washington Post, David Ignatius. So let's get to the details of this story. Amid bipartisan scrutiny and calls for congressional investigations, the Trump administration confirmed yesterday the U.S. military did launch a second follow-up strike on an alleged drug boat in September. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the Admiral, Frank M. Bradley, ordered what's called a double-tap attack, killing 2 people who had survived the first blast. But she insisted the Navy commander acted within his authority and the law to do so.
Does the administration deny that that second strike happened, or did it happen and the administration denies that Secretary Hegseth gave the order?
The latter is true, Abe, and I have a statement to read for you here. President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated.
To clarify,
by the way, and you know, obviously Orwell, you know, the phrase Orwellian language is overused. It really is. But this is, I'm sorry, Orwellian. There was no threat. There was no threat. There was no imminent threat. Civilian smugglers of prescribed goods are not a threat. And except in the most euphemistic and analogous term. So even if we grant that these guys were drug smugglers in the process of smuggling drugs, that's not a military threat. It just simply is not. It is a crime. And as far as I know, these guys were nowhere near the sovereign territory of the United States. So unless you have so the idea that this is some sort of threat to the United States is so marginal and so attenuated as to be meaningless. And I think that's kind of the point. The point is to render all of your systems and your words and your policies and your institutions to be so discredited and so low and based only on the logic of might makes right. It's just the degradation of humanity, of civilization. It's to render us low and flat like a worm, like a snake eating its own tail. We are consuming ourselves for this 28-year-old who looks 50 to feel important. I think the one thing about being a left-winger is you start as you encounter more and more liberals and conservatives, the machete inside of you sharpens to a razor's edge, and you're just like, we need to hack down this. We need to hack down the brambles that block our path with rejuvenated strength. We need to act with more confidence and more celerity. Fuck, I want to throw a torch into the whole dried fucking bramble patch and let it all burn.
Bradley was the one who gave that order for a second strike.
And he was well within his authority to do so.
What law is it that allows no survivors?
The strike conducted on September 2nd was conducted in self-defense to protect Americans in vital United States interests. The strike was conducted in international waters and in accordance with the law of armed conflict.
And then on this pardon for the Honduran president, does it at all undercut the administration's messaging while you have these congressional Republicans defending the strikes on the narco-terrorists and then a pardon for a convicted drug trafficker? Does that make it more difficult for your members to defend your administration's policy?
I don't think so, Jackie. I think that President Trump has been quite clear in his defense of the United States homeland to stop these illegal narcotics from coming to our borders, whether that's by land or by sea.
Or by narco-terrorists that you basically get, or narco leaders that probably are responsible for shipping in as many drugs to the United States as anybody, and he gets a pardon. But I just want to go back to the point that is damning. Maybe people watching didn't see how damning this was for Pete Hegseth, but she said, yes, Admiral Bradley ordered the second strike, but he did it well within the authority that Pete Hegseth had given him. So the illegal orders, if they are found to be illegal, the double tap orders, if they're found to be illegal, according to the White House, Admiral Bradley's, it was Pete Hegseth's. He was following Hegseth's orders. Now, of course, if he knew it was illegal, those orders were illegal, then he too will face justice. But ultimately, according to the White House yesterday, and the answers to those questions, it was Pete Hegseth who authorized the double tap strikes.
And that wasn't the press secretary saying it off the cuff. That was something she read. That was a statement that they had worked up that she read. Sort of, you think, a helpful way to think about it is Hegseth gave the umbrella order to kill everyone on those boats. And maybe the White House is saying, well, Bradley's the one who said, okay, do the second strike to finish them off. But that doesn't change the idea that the strikes, the lethality of these strikes, were from Hegseth, that he gave the permission structure for the so-called double tap. And as we're going to play the video, Hegseth the next day made very clear that he was well aware of everything that happened that day. He bragged about it. So this is
See, this is what you need to do in an impeachment hearing and a criminal prosecution, you fucking wormy losers. Jesus Christ. I mean, it is funny to see Morning Joe pushing Jeffries. God damn it, dude. Something. Somebody do something! Jesus.
Indeed. To this point, this story has not reached the Oval Office. The president has done his best to try to keep his distance from it, as much as he is still supportive of Hegseth. But right now, this does not end with Admiral Bradley. This is on the defense secretary.
And for people that are listening yesterday thinking, and I had a lot of people saying, oh, they're throwing Admiral Bradley under the bus. Actually, if you're a lawyer and you're looking at this, a military lawyer, that's not what you're thinking. You're thinking Bradley's going to have to answer for his actions that day. But the White House is saying this was all authorized. The double tap was authorized by Pete Hegseth because he said the admiral acted well within the authority that Pete Hegseth gave him.
And Caroline Levitt, just a small point, but optics here, is extremely confident and adept off the cuff. She doesn't really need to use notes. In this case, she was very clear to read what she was saying word for word, and I found that to be interesting.
Lawyers got to
Well, yeah, because they want to keep this away from the Oval Office. And keep it. This is Pete Hegseth's problem. And they made that very clear
Defense
yesterday.
Secretary Pete Hegseth, who, according to reports from the Washington Post, issued the verbal directive that no one on the boat be left alive, similarly sought to highlight the role of the military commander in the attack, posting on social media last night, quote, Admiral Bradley is an American hero, a true professional, and has my 100% support. I stand by him and the combat decisions he has made.
Yeah, because you authorized it.
On the September 2nd mission and all others since. Brit Hume of Fox News summarized that post by writing, quote, how to point the finger at someone while pretending to support him.
Another Fox News contributor we mentioned, conservative commentator Andrew McCarthy, has another piece for the National Review on this story. This one titled, New Explanation, Hegseth did not order that all boat operators be killed. McCarthy writes in part, if it is true that he did not give the order, how odd was it that Hegseth's first two responsive posts over the weekend were exactly what you would expect from someone who did give such an order. First, the above unflinching declaration of intention to execute lethal strikes, and second, the cruder, we have only just begun to kill narco-terrorists. Even if one accepts the administration's dubious premise that our forces are in an armed conflict against non-state actors, the cartels, whose operatives are enemy combatants, the second September 2nd strike against the shipwrecked survivors of the first strike cannot be justified. I continue to believe, writes McCarthy, to the contrary, that none of the strikes can be authorized. The controversial second strike on September 2nd is singular only in that its lawlessness is more blatant.
Well, Secretary Hegseth may be pointing the finger at Admiral Bradley, but as the Washington Post reports, it was Hegseth who ordered the strike on the survivors of the initial U.S. attack, saying, quote, kill them all. A day later, he went on Fox News, where he said this about the military operation.
I can tell you that was definitely not artificial intelligence. I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing, and we knew exactly who they represented. And that was Tren de Aragua, a narco-terrorist organization designated by the United States, trying to poison our country with illicit drugs.
And so the Secretary of Defense admitting there, he watched the entire operation live.
Just a few weeks after that, the Secretary gathered together America's top generals and commanders, where he told them, ignore the rules of engagement.
We're training warriors, not defenders. We fight wars to win, not to defend. We also don't fight
We fight wars to win, not to defend. Okay. It has been basically the policy of international law and customary diplomacy that you don't fight aggressive wars. Now, if the position of the United States is that we're going to fight aggressive wars based on our own arbitrary criteria with no, hey, Jaina, nice raid, Jada. Hey, Jada Raiders. How are you guys, gals, non-binary pals doing? We got the kings and the queens and the themperors of the Jaina Splendors stream. Okay, Jonica, I think you might need to reach out to your mental health provider because you seem like you're having some sort of breakdown. You're not really referencing what's going on around you. So I'm going to give you 24 hours to just chill. Maybe try to get some sleep, huh? Drink some water, get some sleep. Reach out to family or friends. Say that you're having a tough one. Galactic Voice and Zev Vexel, thank you so much for the resubs. We got to go arc rating sometime. Just finished my expedition. Hey, Jaina, query. What's your rank right now in trials? What's your rank in trials? You know, it's okay. I think it's wildcard 2. This motherfucker's not even wildcard 3. Wildcard 2. I haven't paid attention a few weeks. Well, then you wouldn't be wild card then. Do you pack a rubber ducky for your Raiders long voyage? And they say he isn't a gamer. Who says that? Although I have to admit, this weekend I may have lost $1 million worth of stuff doing trials. Not gonna lie. We may have. What game is that? Arc Raiders. Missing week. You are tryhard 3 max, huh? No, yeah, it's wildcard 3 max, I think. I don't think anybody is higher than wildcard right now. I think if you max promoted, you should be wildcard 3, right? Does higher rank put you in different matchmaking? Yes, and it sucks. It sucks because, you know, instead of being like, oh, okay, I'll get 20,000 points, it's like I need 100,000 points. Jay Dilla and Ness are the same rank as me. Okay, let's keep going on this. Thank you, Jaina, for the raid and for gamers. Welcome in, gamers. What was I saying? So just to explain one more thing about Arc Raiders, if you noticed, I got 10th place, which is the lowest rank that gets double promoted. There's like these little ranks in the game, and you can only get promoted once or twice per week. And so I finished 10th by like 200 points. It was a devious lick. There's no ranked matchmaking. Yeah, it's not matchmaking. It's your trials bracket, which is a little bit different. Dragon Army says, Mike, I watched you for 740 hours. Not bad, because I think this year I've only streamed somewhere around 900 so far. So you're watching most of the streams. Thank you, brother. Anyway, what was I saying? Okay. So basically every value that America claimed to stand for and has claimed to stand for decades is now completely thrown under the fucking bus. I don't think Zorod should play around with these dogs. Oh yeah, this is pathetic shit. Hold on, let me play this.
Time to call them dictators in Cuba and Venezuela.
I'm not reluctant. I just haven't thought about them that often. I'll be honest with you. I think that Maduro's government is one of repression. There's no question about it. And I think
it's in Cuba.
Sorry?
And also it's happening in Cuba since 1959.
And I think that the repression that, whether we're speaking about Cuban New Yorkers or Venezuelan New Yorkers, that they have had to live through is a repression that stands in a clear contrast what our vision is.
Okay, here's what I will say. I do think that he's not throwing them under the bus. Okay, I think he's trying to straddle a line where he's like, listen, there is repression. So he doesn't want to be like, no, there's no repression in Cuba and Venezuela at all. That's not, first of all, no leftist has ever said that, unless you're part of those governments. There is repression in Cuba. There is repression in Venezuela. You could say a lot of it is justified by the fact that America has those countries under attack and siege, which is my position. My position is if you want to help Cuba and Venezuela, America should treat them as sovereign countries and remove the blockades and be good neighbors. And if they take actual aggressive steps against the United States, like, for example, you know, I don't know, developing nuclear weapons and pointing them at the U.S. That's a different thing than, hey, I want to have my companies be run for the public weal. Havana and Caracas is representing fascists, no doubt about that. Oh, 100%. Honestly, though, if I were Venezuela or Cuba, I'd get a nuke. If I were them, I would have gotten a nuke 20 years ago. I think that if you're talking about Cuba and Venezuela, you have to say there is an illegal blockades that have rendered those countries economically isolated, and if America is comfortable trading with Saudi Arabia, we should be comfortable trading with Venezuela. The United States has no problem when militaries interfere with elections in Pakistan or Honduras. I don't think that Maduro's party being repressive is some sort of impediment to our trade. It's not about that. That's just a laughably stupid point. And the strategy of sanctioning them has not worked, which is why Trump is threatening war, because the sanction program, the isolation program hasn't worked. How about we try diplomacy? Huh? How about we try trade?
Fight with stupid rules of engagement. We untie the hands of our warfighters to intimidate, demoralize, hunt, and kill the enemies of our country. No more politically correct and overbearing rules of engagement. Just common sense, maximum lethality, and authority for warfighters.
David Ignatius, that was 3 weeks after the Washington Post reported he told the admiral, kill them all. And that was after he admitted on Fox and Friends the morning after the strike that he watched the whole thing. And again, the intent was to kill, as Andy McCarthy said this weekend after the news broke in the Washington Post. He gleefully said, that's exactly what we did. Our job was to kill them all, in so many words. But I find the most damning thing what the White House said yesterday, which was that the admiral, if he did order the double tap, the admiral was acting completely within the discretion, or completely within the authority that had been given to him by whom? By Pete Hegseth, to kill them all.
So, Joe, I think there are two strands of this that interest me particularly. First, this theme for Pete Hegseth, that the rules of engagement, these rules that are invented by lawyers, are obstacles to warriors. They're obstacles to the lethality that our forces need, and that it's time to surmount them. He attacked back in February the structure of legal advice at the Pentagon by firing the top judge advocate generals who give advice as to what orders are legal and which ones aren't. There is a second story that's going to play out, and we need to focus carefully on it, about exactly who said what when. Senator Roger Wicker, who's the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, said yesterday they will have full video and audio records of exactly what happened on September 2nd as these strikes took place. Just to quote from an editorial in the Wall Street Journal this morning, you can bet senior military officers bought insurance on their own careers by recording the advice they gave and the directions they received. So these investigations, as they come, are going to be, I think, very detailed, and they'll go into precisely, Hegseth said, in his execute order, which he still has refused to provide to the Senate committee that has asked for it 2 months ago, and exactly what Admiral Frank Bradley did in response, what he knew. The argument is being made that he was going after the boat, not the surviving 2 sailors on the boat. We'll have detailed evidence to evaluate that claim as this goes forward. But I think the 2 points, Hegseth doesn't like the overall regime of rules against his warriors, and second, finding out exactly what was done here is going to be the work of Senate and House committees that I think, from what we can tell, take this very seriously and are going to carry it as far as it needs to go.
Well, on that.
Bro, some of those boat attacks look like they're using crazy axe tungsten shrapnel projectiles like was describing tested in Gaza. I mean, first of all, I doubt that's true. These are not hardened vehicles. These are civilian boats. You don't need to use some sort of tungsten penetrator because it's not necessary. I don't think people really understand the power of modern military weapons, which I think not knowing that is a pretty bad sign. If you consider yourself a revolutionary, you should probably be apprised of military equipment. Like you probably should know what a 2,000-pound bomb is, what the experience of that would be.
This morning, shifting responsibility and evolving narratives. The White House is distancing itself from a
You could just say they're lying and changing their story instead of giving them a euphemistic cover, CNN.
Attack in the Caribbean that has raised questions about possible war crimes. It has now confirmed that the U.S. military did launch a second strike on a boat allegedly tied to a Venezuelan cartel on September 2nd. Sources told CNN there were survivors hanging on the disabled boat after the first attack, and that a second strike killed them all. The White House is drawing a distinction here, saying the final order for the follow-up strike did not come from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, saying instead it came from U.S. Navy Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley. The White House is defending Bradley, saying his actions were lawful. Hegseth posted this on social media: "I stand by him and the combat decisions he has made on the September 2nd mission and all others since." Joined now by CNN Chief National Security Analyst Jim Sciutto. I do want to note, Jim, in the Washington Post, there are all kinds of blind quotes from people saying inside the Pentagon concerned that the administration is scapegoating Admiral Bradley here. What are you hearing?
It's not just out inside the Pentagon, John. I spoke to a member of Congress and a senator yesterday, both on the relevant committees, the Armed Services committees, and both of them said to me they view this as the administration throwing Admiral Bradley under the bus here, and that Admiral Bradley should be concerned going forward. And look at that language that you cited, John. Combat decisions look at the gentleman there to the right of me on the screen, that he has made. And given that early on, even the president himself said, no, he would not have ordered that second strike. Even the president himself has said publicly that second strike in some way was problematic to him. And after the initial denials where they claimed the Post was making this up and other journalists, et cetera, now the administration said, yeah, this happened, but it was not our decision. It was not the president's decision, not the defense secretary's decision. It was Admiral Bradley. That's notable, and we should watch that space going forward.
Now, all of this, Jim, is happening in this theater where there are 15,000 U.S. troops now stationed, in the Caribbean off the coast of Venezuela. There has been talk of possible operations on the ground there in Venezuela. President Trump has spoken to the Venezuelan leader, Nicolas Maduro, by phone. You've got some reporting on the opposition there. What are you hearing?
I spoke to David Smolanski. He is a member of the opposition, also advisor to the opposition leader, Machado. I asked him two things. One, I asked him, does the opposition support this expanding military action, at least the threat of military action on the ground in Venezuela, but also these deadly boat strikes? He didn't want to say no, and I asked him multiple times. He said they support, didn't say specifically military action, but pressure. But I also asked him, given that they are in close conversation with the Trump administration, did the administration fill them in on the content of Trump's conversations with Maduro? And here's what he said to me. Have a listen. Has the Trump administration at all updated you on the content of the president's conversations with Nicolas Maduro? What have they spoken about?
We have information about it. It was brief call, and Maduro has options on the table. So we'll see. Last year, again, he was offered a way to exit before the election, during the election, after the election. The thing that I can say is that Maduro has always used negotiations to gain time, to fracture international community, and to demoralize people. He has used that over a decade.
Are you saying that he was offered a way to leave the country?
Apparently, yes.
Options on the table, John Berman, and a way to leave. The question, of course, is, does Maduro take those options? It seems that the administration's hope is that all that military pressure, at least the threat of military action, will be enough to force him out. But he was quite public in the streets in the last couple of days. Maduro, at least for now, he's not taking one of those options.
It seemed quite purposeful to be public like that. Jim Sciutto, terrific reporting. Thank you on all these fronts. Appreciate it. With us now is Senator Chris Coons, a Democrat from Delaware. He sits on the Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Coons, thanks so much for being with us. The White House says it was Admiral Bradley who ordered the second strike and that it was lawful. How persuaded are you?
I'm not, and I am encouraged that there is bipartisan effort behind getting to the bottom of this. John, I'm the senior Democrat on defense and intelligence appropriations in the U.S. Senate, and I haven't gotten anywhere near the level of briefing and engagement that Congress deserves before Trump sleepwalks us into a war with Venezuela. This incident that was just covered by the Washington Post in recent days suggests that a war crime may have been committed, and I think Secretary Hegseth likely gave the order. I know Admiral Bradley. He's the SOCOM commander. He came up through the ranks. He is decorated. He's experienced. He's seasoned. He was one of the first Americans into Afghanistan after 9/11. I'd be very surprised if he did this on his own without direct support or a command from the secretary.
The New York Times is reporting a nuanced version of this today, Senator, where it hears from multiple sources, the Times reports, that Secretary Hegseth, his initial order was to attack the boat and kill people on the boat, but it didn't give any instructions as to what to do if there were survivors there. It also raises the possibility that the follow-up strike was targeted on the boat itself, not the survivors, which may hold a different weight under military law. How does that impact your view of this?
Well, John, that's why we need a thorough oversight investigation by both Senate Armed Services and House Armed Services. That is a credible alternative characterization of what happened. The larger point is that the American people deserve to know what we're doing in Venezuela. Obviously, Maduro is a bad guy, and exporting drugs to Europe or West Africa, which is predominantly what they're doing, sending cocaine through the Caribbean.
Democrats never found a war that they didn't support. Liberals oppose every war except for the one on offer right now.
To Europe through West Africa is a bad thing. But President Trump has tried to justify this as stopping drug trafficking into the United States that's causing tens of thousands of Americans to overdose every year. That is a tragedy that we should be working together to block, but the majority of that is from fentanyl, and the majority of that is coming from Mexico, things that we are working in a strong bipartisan way to try and reduce and interdict. Just this week, President Trump announced he will pardon the former president of Honduras, who was convicted in an American court of trafficking huge quantities of drugs into the United States. And there's no explanation given for that pardon. I suspect it's because of the lobbyists that he hired. So what is the reason we're engaging in the Southern Caribbean? Why are there more than 15,000 U.S. troops and 10% of our Navy deployed off the coast of Venezuela? The obvious answer to me seems to be regime change. They're trying to move Maduro out of power through pressure or by force. And what I haven't heard, and the American people deserve to hear, is what comes next. When you push out a dictator, it causes chaos. Just look at what happened in Libya and Iraq, both of which ended badly for regional security. And I think we need to hear from the Trump administration and from Secretary Rubio, what on earth are their plans for the stage 2 of this engagement in the Southern Caribbean?
You just brought up a lot there, including the proposed pardon of Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was the president of Honduras, convicted of helping bring in some 500 tons of cocaine into the United States. In his trial, testimony said that he once said he wanted to stuff drugs up the gringos' noses. So what does this pardon, which hasn't happened yet, but we think is going to, tell you?
That pardon suggests that President Trump has been pardoning people left and right for all sorts of reasons that don't serve Americans' core interests. If President Trump actually wants to send a strong signal, Central and South American heads of states involved in narco trafficking, pardoning one of the most recent grotesque offenders, a man who trafficked 500 tons of cocaine into the United States, is exactly the wrong message. So, as is so often the case here, Trump says one thing and does the other. He says he supports law enforcement and pardons the January 6 rioters who assaulted law enforcement. He says this campaign is about stopping drugs coming into America, and I think we will soon see him pardon the immediate past president of Honduras who trafficked hundreds of tons of cocaine to the United States.
I need to hit refresh on my browser. The pardon has happened, and the former president of Honduras, I'm told, has been released.
So a guy, I mean, like, what can you even say? What can you even say? What can you even say? And he was a conservative. He was a neocon. He was a neoliberal. He was a conservative, and he was a drug cartel associate. I mean, what can you even say? He's clearly CIA. The United States of America is also behind the drug trade. The United States of America is behind most of the world's most notorious terrorist groups. You have to understand that this country is legitimately the cause of all of the world's problems, like climate change. We are vastly overconsumed, and we have forced people into a petroleum model. Terrorism, every major, most major terrorist groups got their start working with U.S. intelligence. Drug trafficking, same story. It is just outrageous.
Your point is well taken. Very quickly, Senator, Secretary Hegseth at one point said he actually was monitoring the strike on this boat via a live feed in Venezuela. What questions does that raise for you?
That raises for me, what were the rules of engagement? Look, Admiral Bradley, a decorated SEAL, knows the rules of war and the terms of engagement. And there's quite a distinct thing between intentionally killing survivors who pose no threat to America or American forces and going after a boat in a way that, frankly, we still haven't seen the legal justification for. So I think if Secretary Hegseth was as directly involved in giving orders and monitoring the situation as you just suggested, that will support the bipartisan outrage at this attack that violates the most basic rules of war.
We'll figure out, or we'll see soon, what Congress finds out. Senator Chris Coons from Delaware, great to see you this morning. Thank you very much.
And it's pretty staggering when you take a step back and you realize that today, 1 in 6 people here in the United States is foreign born. 1 in 6. Quite frankly, it's not sustainable to maintain a culture that we are known for here in the United States. When you have people who, instead of assimilating into our culture, are opting to basically import their culture, many cases that culture is one of fraud and schemes and scams and violence. The
President of the United States is Donald Trump, one of the biggest schemers and scammers in American. That's his culture. What are you talking about? The fuck are you talking about? He would hire companies to put up window treatments in his hotels and then not pay them. He's been scamming people since the 70s. Like, what are we talking about here?
The underfoot of what America is all about. And it's pretty staggering when you take a step back and you realize that today, 1 in 6 people here in the United States is foreign born.
Unbelievable. America is a country of immigrants. Everybody, almost everyone here, unless you're indigenous, is fucking foreign born. That's the whole point. What are you talking about? I'm pretty sure Kamak is an Irish name, by the way. I'm pretty sure Kamak is an Irish name. You're a fucking immigrant. You're a fucking immigrant. All right, chat. It's time for our daily China glaze. China has built the world's tallest bridge, or highest bridge, rather. So we're back on our daily China glaze. New YouGov poll shows 58% support rent control and only 21% opposed to it. Do you favor or oppose rent control where limits are set on the rents that landlords are allowed to charge? 58% support. Guys, I'm sorry, but popularism demands that we accept this. Popularism demands we accept this. Sorry, guys. We'll talk about this more after the China glaze.
This is the highest bridge on the planet. At 625 meters above the Huajiang Canyon in China, you'd have to climb to the top of this country's tallest building to get this far off the ground. Construction crews faced unstable mountain terrain and powerful winds in the race to open the structure earlier this year. But it's not only that it's dizzyingly high up. This structure features some of the most impressive bridge engineering I've ever seen. There's a reason that the phrase "no"
It came out yesterday. What, you're on the China glaze? Go watch every one of my China videos.
3 feet of level ground is a saying synonymous with the locals in Guizhou. More than 90% of the province, where the Huajing Canyon Bridge is located, is covered in mountains and hills. It's also stunningly beautiful. Described as the Switzerland of China, it's recognized worldwide as a travel hotspot because of its cultural offering and stunning views.
But that doesn't mean it's always been easy to get to. Historically, Guizhou has been something of an isolated island, and while accessing it was difficult, moving around it was even harder. And that's why the Chinese government are spending billions to try and better connect this region with the rest of the country, and indeed the wider world.
In the late 90s, China opened the Guiyang Longdongbo International Airport, and a high-speed rail line and expressways now run through Guizhou. But the nation's mountain mission trudges on. To enable travel through this area, Guizhou is now home to a crazy 32,000 bridges, providing direct routes through the challenging landscape. And the most impressive one of all opened earlier this year.
The world's highest bridge is now open in China.
Almost 200 meters higher than the Empire State Building.
It will reportedly slash commute times across a canyon.
China has now officially opened the highest bridge in the world.
Take a boat ride on the Beipan River and you'll start to understand the scale of this incredible piece of engineering. Huajing Bridge stretches across the Huajing Canyon hundreds of meters above the ground. Originally, to get from one side to the other, you'd be driving around winding mountain roads for up to 2 hours. Now, it takes just 2 minutes.
Now, the bridge forms a key part of the Guizhou S57, which is basically a 150-kilometer highway that slices right through the heart of a mountain. And I mean that very literally.
A mountain has indeed been cut in half to allow for the construction of a road through this region. Using explosives and massive drills, engineers created a V-shaped cut in the rock. The expressway connects the Liuji Special District and Anlong County via 14 interchanges to make driving here somewhat manageable.
So raise your hand if you're surprised to see China splitting a mountain in half to build a highway, only to connect that highway to the world's highest bridge.
Guys, I've got an idea for how America could be better. This is gonna be huge. Another $30 billion for Israel. They have free health care. You know, we pay for their abortions and for their fertility treatments. What about universal massages for Israelis, What's this? Your kids don't have books at their school? Extra asbestos for that person's child's school. They're interrupting my call for more Israeli aid. More asbestos for their child's school.
A bit further down the road. Never mind the engineers actually working on this stuff. It takes me a huge amount of brain power just to make the videos, to work out what the hell they're doing and how the hell they pulled it off. Luckily, I keep myself sharp using our video partner, Brilliant. Their series on mathematics is the perfect antidote for keeping up with the sheer you're a better thinker in Brilliant.org. You'll
next the highway.
Let's get back to that mountain of a project.
Huajing Bridge is the giant puzzle piece that connects the highway on both sides of the canyon. Engineers studied the area 5 to 10 kilometers up and downstream to find the right location.
Now, that involves a number of considerations, like finding the right soil conditions to stabilize the towers, navigating the incredible height of those canyon walls, and of course the width of the gap that you're trying to bridge across. And with all of that considered, it so happened that what was needed was a record-breaking bridge. A fun coincidence that China seems to keep running into.
This is where they landed, with the bridge stretching 2,890 meters with a main span of 1,420 meters.
Wow.
Now, there were a couple of obvious design options for the architects to consider. Cable-stayed or suspension. A cable-stayed bridge looks like this. You need to construct very tall towers with cables that come down to support the bridge deck. The more practical design for long-span bridges, and what was agreed for Huajing, is a steel truss suspension bridge. It's a well-proven system in rocky, mountainous terrain like this, as the support cables can be anchored into hard rock, offering incredible stability.
Before construction could start, engineers used a virtual pre-assembly technique to map out how the structure would come together, a bit like a practice run.
The steel girder structure consists of 93 truss sections featuring chords and deck panels. Altogether, it weighs 22,000 tons. Now, bear in mind that the steel used for the Eiffel Tower weighs 7,300 tons. So the Huajing Bridge is 3 times heavier. And all of that material is being manoeuvred at a ridiculous height. And while steel is incredibly sturdy, a 625-metre drop onto rock might just challenge its structural integrity, not to mention the material cost. So accuracy is key. The biggest crane in the world is Big Carl, a 250-metre piece of kit built by the Belgian company Sarens. You'd need 3 Big Carls stacked on top of each other to hover above the top of this canyon. And while you wouldn't put it past China to try and go after that record too, they've actually gone for a more intricate solution.
What we have here is using what's called a cable crane, which is an overhead system. So it's like an overhead cable runway, where the units are delivered to the ends where you've already built the abutments and concrete foundations and so on. And then you lift it up and it travels along, almost like a monorail, but it's a cable, not a rail. And then you can deliver it to where it needs to be, and then you attach it to the cable system.
It's an incredible answer to what is the ultimate test in engineering at this height. Those steel girder pieces are placed in the middle, and then the bridge is built outwards from there. And you do it like that to balance the structure and to avoid placing undue pressure on one single support tower.
The steel sections are then slotted correctly into place using the Chinese equivalent of GPS called the Beidou Navigation Satellite System. Now, we can't forget that by nature this canyon has sloped sides which are trickier to build.
Yeah, Chad, have you considered what you would do if the United States government decided to take away GPS from you? You know how to read a map? This is what resistance to capitalism is actually like. You're like, we've got to have our own GPS system.
On then a flat surface. Just look at what happened to the Hongqi Bridge in Sichuan recently when cracks appeared on the nearby roads and slopes. Given the uneven terrain, configuring structural foundations to get even distribution
there was a really
is
bad,
a real challenge.
earthquake landslide.
And that's why the towers are actually different heights. The North Tower stands 262 metres tall, while the South Tower is 205 metres tall. And the cables are stabilised using an asymmetrical anchorage design.
The mountainside is anything but symmetrical. And so your 2 cables at the back coming down from the tower tops, coming down to ground where the anchorages are, will very often meet the ground at completely different levels or different places. So the asymmetry will be in the anchorages. Some might be deeper than the others, depending again on the local geology, exactly where the cable meets the ground.
Now, the landscape is the most obvious hurdle to overcome with the Huajing Bridge. But what about when that landscape moves? While not known for facing the biggest earthquakes on the planet, Guizhou does experience some seismic activity. It's important that any bridge like this is ready for that eventuality, and as Ian explains, it was a key consideration.
A bridge like this, a long-span bridge, of course, you've got the weight of the bridge deck, which is hanging there like a sort of glorified pendulum, and an earthquake comes along and it's going to try and move. Sometimes we use hydraulic devices, big sort of shock absorbers, if you like, at each end, so that they kind of absorb the movement and slow it down, but still allow the bridge to move under thermal change, for example, temperature change. That's very common.
Then we have one of the biggest challenges of all. Whenever you build major infrastructure, the wind is right near the top of the list of challenges to overcome, not least when designing a bridge. And especially one standing this high above a massive canyon.
Look at that anchor point. That's the first time we saw that angle, but like, look at the anchor point. Do you see Hassanabi heads in Chengdu, China meet up every week and do fun activities like drone building, mathematics, and they cook meals for local workers? That is so fucking cool.
When designing a bridge, and especially one standing this high above a massive canyon.
The geographic formation of a canyon has a huge influence on wind patterns through something called the Venturi effect, named after the Italian physicist Giovanni Battista Venturi. And he found that when wind passes through a narrow passage, its speed increases and its pressure drops.
It's often experienced between tall buildings in cities. And of course, in a canyon like this, where there are narrow sections where wind gets trapped, its behaviour can be pretty volatile. Gusts are reported to reach staggering speeds compared to an express train. Now, regular viewers of the B1M are going to be familiar with the testing method. A certain amount can be done with a computer, but ultimately you really need to head to a facility with a wind tunnel.
There, a scaled-down model of the bridge and its surrounding elements are subjected to recreated wind patterns to see how they perform. And while that might sound familiar, you might have heard of that bit before, what you may not have heard of is another system used on this bridge, Doppler LiDAR.
Doppler is a system which we know.
Meanwhile, our like most famous bridges were built in the Great Depression 100 years ago. We had a bridge fall down in Baltimore and it's still not fixed. Got hit by a container ship full of products from China and it collapsed and it's still not fixed. Cool.
Most familiarly, when a siren goes past you, the pitch changes, and that's just the frequency shift when something's moving. LiDAR is a laser system for representing in three-dimensional space surfaces or voids, objects. And so what this is doing is using a sort of scatter of laser beams into the clouds, into the air, and measuring the frequency shift, the Doppler bit, measuring the frequency shift of the reflected signal. The signal is reflecting off moisture particles in the air. So what that's doing is building up a three-dimensional image of the moving moisture particles in the sky. And that gives you a picture of what the wind is doing.
It was crucial to account for the geological conditions, seismic events, and the wind. But just because those conditions were factored in at design stage doesn't mean monitoring ends when the bridge opens. As strong as the cables are that support the great weight of the steel, they're under tons of strain. Engineers keep an eye on them by attaching fibre optic strands into the cables themselves.
As the metal wires expand under increased load, the fibre optic strand expands too. Then, by passing light down the fibre optic system, you can measure reflections and the extension using a fibre optic strain gauge.
As you can imagine, it's crucial to keep an eye on the tension. After all, the cables are the most critical aspect of a suspension bridge. They're usually made using preformed parallel wired strands, where stacks of wires are bundled together and then collated into one big hole. And then, to connect all of the upper elements into place, you need to have a serious stomach for heights. A catwalk sits on top of the structure to allow workers to move about. Rather them than me.
I'd do it. Come on. That would be fucking based. I'd love to get up there.
When you look along the river, you can see where the heights of engineering used to peak. Now we have extraordinary structures like the Huajiang Bridge costing up to $300 million and built in just 3.5 years.
That's it. The Francis Scott Key Bridge replacement expected to complete in 2030. It cost $5.2 billion, so 3 times longer and 10 times more expensive. That's more than 10 times. It's what, like 14 times more expensive? And it's a simple bridge and an already existing right of way, like inside of a city, like, bro. And Americans always do this thing where they're like, but labor costs, guys, it's labor costs. That's not labor costs. It's not labor costs. It's the million scams that exist and the contracting scams and how long it takes, because like the longer it takes you to build something, the more of those costs a balloon. America is incapable of doing things anymore.
But while it is a record breaker, and that would usually come with a certain level of acclaim, this is just what China does. The country has more high-speed...
Just what China does. That's the most damning part of this. Just what China does. It's just what China does.
This is just what China does. The country has more high-speed rail than anywhere else on the planet. It has more bridges and a higher number of dams. But what's happening in Guizhou is about more than just setting records. Since 2012, the nation's been spending hundreds of billions to develop infrastructure projects in its poorest regions. It's all part of China's war on poverty, to better connect and develop revenue generation outside of the key city hubs like Beijing and Shanghai. Although it's worth pointing out that Guizhou is part of China's Belt and Road.
Is it just humiliating to listen to this? I know I am humiliated. It's humiliating to me. Our country had a 100-year head start, and we can't build a fucking bridge.
Road Initiative, which is a strategy launched by the nation to create economic corridors around the world. China's keen to show how developed each section of the Belt and Road route has become. And that brings us back to why the Huajiang Bridge is a whole lot more than what it seems. This thing was first built with you, me, and the rest of the world in mind. Like bears to honey, China's hoping that Huajiang will become a tourism trap. The bridge features an 800-meter glass elevator that takes visitors up to a 2-story coffee shop in one of its support towers. On the underside of the car deck, a glass walkway lets you look down to the canyon if you dare. There's even an artificial waterfall that spans hundreds of meters across the bridge. But aside from engineering fans and coffee lovers, China wants Huajiang to become a hub for extreme sports. There's a bungee jump here so that adrenaline seekers can fling themselves from a platform on the world's highest bridge. Plans are being formulated for professional base jumping events, and there's even talk of a centre for extreme sports in the canyon below.
I mean, it's barely even base jumping because it's so high and there's no obstructions. It's basically just parachuting. It's not even base jumping at this point. It's so safe. I mean, I'm exaggerating. Base jumping is incredibly dangerous. It's probably one of the most dangerous things that you can do. But
you see, Huajiang Bridge is an amazing spectacle of modern engineering. It's testament to the development of this industry that we can construct infrastructure like this, even in the most inhospitable of environments. Hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars are spent creating travel routes that generate money from visitors far.
And see, the thing is, chat, like, I remember our politics is they built one bridge in Alaska and Americans derided it as the bridge to nowhere. Americans are so skinflint and so stupid that they built one bridge and I had to learn about it as if it was some big waste of money. And it's like, who gives a fuck? It's a bridge. It improves this infrastructure. Unless it's going to fall down next year, that's great. I hope we have more. Meanwhile, China's like, no, we're going to connect the most treacherous regions of our country and we're going to make them available to the rest of the country. We're going to interconnect everything. We're going to make this our Switzerland. So embarrassing. Here's me from earlier this year, 7 months ago. Okay, if I could ever get to... And people hate chance and she was going to get landslided. And people hated my guts for that. They hated my guts. I had old friends who were like mad at me for saying this, my analysis. And I was like, she's going to lose. That's what the polls show. Like, the early voting shows the Republicans have a massive advantage. Like, guys, there's no world where she's winning right now. You're delusional. It would be like a 5% miracle. And the vibes are shifting and the right has peaked. I was dead fucking right. Holy crap, am I right? And I want to say this. I'm never going to get rewarded for this. It doesn't matter that I'm right. It doesn't matter that I saw the future. No one's going to reward me for this. They're just going to rationalize their behavior, right? I also know that AOC is going to be the person who's running on the left for president, and she has a very good chance of winning. And that's why I've never, ever fully abandoned her, as long as, even though she's made a bunch of boneheaded mistakes that I disagree with. Nobody's going to care, though, that I've been calling this for 5 years. Wait, you said Ben is going to lose? No, I didn't. I said she's going to win. I think she's going to win. I think she's going to win today because, and we're going to get into that. I think she's going to win today. The polling is going to underestimate Democrats. Donald Trump is super unpopular now, so his base is depressed. His base is also lower propensity voters. If a poll is showing them tied, I think she's going to win.
White.
I'm going to start betting on Polymarket. Don't gamble on those fucking right-wing websites.
Bridges like the one in Huajiang are literal sightseeing destinations in their own right. This video was sponsored by Brilliant. Don't forget to go and check them out at the link below because it really helps support the B1M when you take the time to go and have a look at our videos.
I mean, I'm so glad that China is finally getting the recognition it deserves. And I think a lot of people are finally kind of like, they're ending the cope phase. The first part was the cope phase where it was like, China's just copying the West. They're just copying the West. And then it's like, if just copying is so easy, how come most of the world sucks shit? If just taking somebody else's ideas and implementing them is so fucking easy, how come most of the world sucks?
Medical diagnoses are witchcraft. You have stage 3 cancer. You have 3 months to live, but you can live up to 3 years with chemotherapy. Your heart is failing. Believing these things or allowing other people to tell you these things does not address the root cause of illness and actually makes it worse. Every symptom produced by the body has an intelligent healing purpose, but medical doctors don't understand this, which is why they believe we need to suppress symptoms instead of getting to the root cause of what's causing the symptoms in the first place.
Okay, I am a tanky. And the reason why I'm a tanky is because of guys like this. I do not believe that people like this should be allowed to spread this kind of brain rot, misinformation. I think they should be arrested. And that's what makes me a tanky. Okay, I'm not an anarchist where I think like, well, it's his personal autonomy. No. He's such a malign influence on society that his superstitious blather should not be allowed to exist. That's what makes me a tanky. Now, obviously, there's some objections you can make to being excessively restrictive, right? But in this specific case, this guy needs to be arrested. His phone needs to be taken, smashed with a hammer. Everybody who followed him needs to be like a wellness check needs to be done. That's why I'm a tanky, because there are certain positions that are just so evil and so devoid of thought, they should be suppressed. Nazism should be suppressed. This kind of superstitious blather should be suppressed. It should not be allowed to proliferate. It should not be treated as a viable entry in the marketplace of ideas. All it does is hurt and kill people.
Instead of telling yourself and allowing others to tell you that the symptoms are a bad thing, be grateful for them, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's painful, because the symptoms are there to heal you. Reduce your exposure to toxicity, get in alignment with nature, and tell yourself that you're healing. This will bring your stress levels down low enough to where you can actually heal. The witchcraft in mainstream medicine is one of the main reasons I will never go to a medical doctor again unless it's for a broken bone or some kind of structural damage.
And I mean, this guy should be in prison. I mean it. I mean it. Also, why do you trust them to fix your broken bone? Why is it the pain of the broken bone the body's way of giving you, healing information so you can heal? Why is the bone not healing back straight? Because you're dumb. You're stupid. You're fucking stupid, and you should be suppressed. And I think that after the last 12 years of our politics, I mean, going back to 1980 with Ronald Reagan, if you don't think the right wing needs to be actively suppressed, I think there's something wrong with you. I think not being a tanky toward the right is obscene at this point. All they do, it doesn't matter how many times they cut taxes on the rich. They won't stop cutting taxes on the rich. It doesn't matter if the London School of Economics studies it, of trickle-down theories. It doesn't work. It's been tried in 50 countries. It's been measured for 100 years. But it doesn't matter. They do it again. 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 Why? Because it's not about the reality of the world. Here it is. The London School of Economics and Political Science. Tax cuts for the wealthy only benefit the rich. Debunking trickle-down economics. Research published in a working paper in 2020, David Hope and Julian Lindbergh of the LSE's International Inequalities Institutes at King's College London analyzed the economic effects of major tax cuts for the rich across 5 decades in 18 wealthy nations. The rich get richer while unemployment and economic growth are unaffected. I knew all of this already. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Discussing wealth, tax, and fairness in a polarized age. The reality is, when it's studied, there is no positive effect for cutting taxes on the rich. All that does is make our government poorer and less able to provide benefits for you. Less able to build infrastructure for our society. So over long term, we become poorer. And by the way, this is basic Econ 101 shit. I want to explain something, chat. In order to calculate the productivity of a society, you look at infrastructure, you look at human capital, you look at methods and practices. When you remove human capital, that means not educating people. That makes their productivity goes down. That means they have to spend more work hours to produce the same output. That means less wealth for society as a whole. Right-wing shit is de-industrializing our society. You can see it. America's falling a fucking apart. We can't build a bridge. We can't build an apartment building. We don't have enough houses. We have traffic everywhere. Why do we have so much traffic? Because we don't have public transit. We don't have enough infrastructure. That is because we've cut back the government to the bone. And where do we spend all our money? Law enforcement, military shit, which is what? Unproductive labor. Everybody who spends their day holding a gun, standing around, is a leech on society, literally. Hard labor is a burden on our society. The military is a burden on our society. Now, obviously, we need some level of social protection from outside malign forces, but the United States of America could cut its military by 75%, and your security would be unaffected. That would be $750 billion a year that we could be investing in our country. In order for China to become the world's leading power in green energy technologies, they had to spend $650 billion. That's 1 year of Pentagon spending. This is why I'm a tanky. I'm a tanky because tankies believe the right wing should be suppressed. I'm not really a tanky in the real sense of like I support the Soviet Union and what they did, to suppress, social protest. That's not, I don't actually agree with that. But what I am what I am saying is that the right wing needs to be suppressed, and it needs to be targeted, and it needs to be dealt with aggressively. We didn't destroy, one of the things that people don't know is that there's been more than one Ku Klux Klan. The original Ku Klux Klan, you know what happened to it? Do you know what happened to the original Ku Klux Klan? It was annihilated. It was destroyed. It was dispersed. It was eliminated. The original Ku Klux Klan was destroyed. Now, a lot of people don't know that. It's because America did something called the Force Acts or the Enforcement Acts. The main goal in creating these acts was to improve conditions for black people and freed slaves. The main target was the Ku Klux Klan, a white supremacy organization, which was targeting black people and later other groups. Although the act was meant to fight the KKK and help black men in freedom, many states were reluctant to take such relatively extreme actions for several reasons. Some politicians at the state and federal levels were either members of the Klan or did not have strength to fight the Klan. Another goal of these acts was to create national unity by creating a country where all races were considered equal under the law. This was Reconstruction when it was working. As a response to the act, Klansmen in South Carolina were put on trial in front of juries made up of mainly African Americans. Amos T. Ackerman was largely involved in the prosecutions of the Klansmen. He worked to make America aware of Klan violence and how much of a problem was becoming. His work led to trials and a jail sentence of a few hundred Klan members. Many others who were put on trial either fled or were only given a warning. By 1872, the Klan as an organization had been officially broken. People don't know this. They think there's this unbroken succession of the Klan, and the reality is the Klan was smashed. It wasn't until the betrayal of black people and the abandonment of the South to get Rutherford B. Hayes in the White House that the Klan began to reemerge. Like, that's the reality. If you want to deal with the right, you have to use maximum force. Every other strategy is a failure.
7th Congressional District. The election, such a special election. You've got political heavyweights coming in town from all across the country. It is typically a very deep red congressional district that is up for grabs. President Trump, for example, carried it by 22 points last year. But Democratic leaders have a real chance here. They are rallying around Afton Bain, who has turned her messaging to affordability and the skyrocketing cost of living. The race is close, so close that House Speaker Mike Johnson has been on the ground campaigning with the Republican candidate Matt Van Epps, and the president chimed in by phone. CNN Washington Bureau Chief David Chalian is breaking down what you should be watching in Tennessee today.
I tried to subscribe so I could rewind to what you said the cost was for China to get their clean energy position. It's $650 billion was invested by the Chinese government over the course of the last decade in order to become the green technology base. which is $65 billion a year. The Pentagon budget currently is around $1 trillion per year. So for what amounts to 10% of the Pentagon budget, America could have had all been the green energy, green technology world hub. But instead, we decided to build the F-35. And by the way, China has better planes than the F-35. So we spent trillions of dollars on the F-35, and China has the F-35 anyway, because that's how it works, guys. You're not able to get qualitative superiority. All that happens when the United States spends so much money on these techniques and on this research is China sends one spy in, gets the fucking plans, and they're there. They save and they can build 5th generation, and they're the first country to present 6th generation fighters. They're actually ahead of us. They're the first country to have a carrier with an electromagnetic catapult that can launch 5th generation fighters. The United States of America can't do that. China has built 3 aircraft carriers in the last 3 years, and they are developing a new light carrier drone mothership hybrid, which is far more advanced than anything America has. They're going to have light carriers where we cannot compete. It's already fucking over. It's already over. The next 15 years are China's just going to be mogging us every fucking day. And once they're over the Malacca dilemma, once they've completely electrified transport, once they have completely built up the 150 nuclear reactors they're building and the gigawatts of renewable energy, and they're 100% off of oil and coal, it's fucking over. Their electricity prices are going to be 1/10 of what ours are. Do you understand the structural advantage of having electricity 1/10 the cost of your competitor? It's already over, folks. It's done. It's done.
Sarah, as you noted, just over a year ago, Donald Trump won this district in Tennessee by 22
All right,
points.
chat. Let's talk about the special election that's happening in Tennessee. If you are in Tennessee, you better be putting your ass into this fucking race. You better be voting today. I swear to fucking God. I hope she doesn't become a MGP, but nonetheless, it's important that she wins.
Talking about this, how could this be competitive? Well, the reason both parties are spending millions of dollars on this race is because today's political climate and in an off-year special election can produce a very different electorate. And this is what we've seen throughout 2025, not just in the November elections in New Jersey and Virginia and New York City, but in special House elections like this one that took place in deep red territory. Democrats are significantly overperforming how Kamala Harris performed in these districts just a year ago. And that's in large part due to...
By the way, chat, I don't think you should look at Kamala Harris's numbers as the baseline. I think that Kamala Harris was a uniquely weak candidate. So I think she probably underperformed most places by at least 4 to 5 percentage points. So like when you look at Trump versus Harris, like she was a uniquely weak candidate that depressed turnout among base voters even lower than normal. And so I don't think you can look at that as a baseline. In fact, I think if you're going off of Kamala Harris's performance, you are really underestimating how left-wing an area is. I would say that if I was in a Republican plus 10 district or better, I consider that to be a pickup opportunity because Kamala Harris is so weak of a candidate and such a poor leader that it's probably closer, you know, like I think anything R plus 10 or better is winnable. And I think a lot of people are going to win in districts that are a lot better than that. A lot worse than that, rather. Honestly, you should be looking and you should be trying to run. Like, if you have any kind of political connections at all, chat. I think some people are just going to win by pure luck this cycle.
Opposition to Donald Trump. So Democrats are hoping to ride that wave of enthusiasm and energy in these off-year, off-cycle elections in order to produce upsets. Now, if the Democrat Afton Bain were to win here, it would be a political earthquake. This is still a very tough climb for Democrats. Even if it is within single digits, That is going to be a warning shot to Republicans as we prepare to turn the calendar to 2026 and the midterm elections, and they try hang on to their House majority. I will also note one thing else, that if indeed the Democrat were to shock the world with a victory, that would a potential vote away from Mike Johnson.
If she wins, does that mean Republicans are a mega cooked? They're a mega cooked. I honest to God think that this is the best time to run for office that I have seen in my entire life. If you're a left winger, right now is the best time to run for office I've ever seen in my entire life. Is Afton cooked? I don't think she's cooked at all. Does anybody have polls on the race that they could send me? I want to take a look into the crosstabs.
Very narrow majority in the House. He's got 219 Republicans right now. He can only afford to lose 2 Republicans on any party line vote. He'd like one more for a little cushion, and that's what a Republican victory would deliver to the Speaker today.
David Chalian, you're the best. Thank you so much joining us right now.
I honest to God think she should not be running with the idea she's going to keep this seat. I think she should be running with the idea that she is going to kamikaze the Republican Party elite. She should just run as a left winger. She should just be leftist. I know this is hard to understand for some politicians because they think when I win, well, I could win again. The answer is no. At best, you're going to win a time or two, unless there's some massive world countrywide realignment far to the left. You're not winning that district more than a time or two. So she should go in there, kamikaze as like, you know, as progressive as she could be, raise her national name recognition. Like silver is 58 an ounce. That's incredible.
Our Democratic strategist Megan Hayes and Republican strategist Doug Hyde, 2 of the best as well, not to diminish you guys, my friends. This also gives us the opportunity to play the latest round of our favorite game of Big Deal or No Big Deal. Let me set the table with
Thank you,
aspect
ABC
when it
Davis, for the link
to this race. Mike Johnson told reporters in Tennessee, "We think what will happen here will be a bellwether for the midterms next year."
He's such an incompetent boob. He's so stupid. He's such an idiot. He's so stupid. He's such a dumb fuck. He's so stupid. If they win, everybody's going to shrug their shoulders and go, it's a Trump plus 22 district. She did a hell of a job. And they're going to move on. If they lose, 80 Republicans are going to retire. That's why I'm really disappointed in like DSA needs to have people running in like 10, 15, 20, 15. Like I should have been in fucking, I regret so hard that I don't have power in the DSA right now. Like we need to be having a national political we should just be running DSA members. Just run them. Even if their campaigns are not that good, they might win just from the anti-Trump sentiment. We should just be throwing people in seats. And I think a lot of people are so worried about this idea of like, well, what if we lose? Who gives a fuck? Who gives a shit if people lose? Who cares? Just try to take as many easy wins as we can, random wins. But everybody's like, well, if I lose, it means people are rejecting my ideas. Who gives a shit? Do it again. Mike, we need to do a deep dive on early voting turnout in Tennessee 7th. There's much more indicative than polls are at this point. I've not seen anyone focus on evaluating. Do you have a link to the early voting results?
And a month ago, he said this about Democratic wins in Virginia and New York.
I don't think the loss last night was any reflection about Republicans at all. What happened last night was blue states and blue cities voted blue. We all saw that coming.
So it's not a bellwether at all. Doug, big deal or no big deal? What's going to happen in Tennessee?
I think we need to figure out what happens first, and we'll find that out, I think, pretty quickly tonight as the
Wait,
vote.
What? I need to wait till see what happens before I declare it a big deal or not. How about this, you dumb piece of shit? Say, if she wins, it's a big deal. If the Republican wins, it's not a big deal. There's only 2 outcomes, asshole. Why are you on TV? Why are they smiling? What is... A lot of the times I lack self-awareness and I'm like, I'm not that neurodivergent. And then I watch like other people reasoning and I'm like, I'm really neurodivergent, aren't I? I'm really neurodivergent, aren't I? Because it's just like, holy fuck, this is embarrassing. Did you know you are shadow banned on Twitch? I watch you more than anyone on this platform. My recap doesn't even show you. That's not true. I'm not shadow banned. I don't think I'm shadow banned. Twitch doesn't hate me. They don't particularly love me, but they don't hate me. They're not like, oh, fuck Mike, we hate that guy so much, we can't wait to ban him. They're just like, Mike does his stream. He's fine. If anything, I phrase things in a way that gets me in trouble less often than Hassan does. I still fuck up like any human being, you know, just reality. All right, let's keep going. We're gonna look at this more. Don't worry.
It's come in. As David is right, if this is in single digits, it's a big warning sign for Republicans.
I had 1,800 hours of Hassan, 740 hours of Mike, and 625 hours of Caroline Kwan. Bro, that means you're like have Twitch running every hour. I swear. But that's good. That's good. That's good. You have, that's a good key recap. Those are the people I like. Those are the people I like. Have you shouted out voting for Jake and Joel? I haven't. Make sure if you're in Jersey City, you're voting for Jake and Joel today. It's huge. Hugely important. Make sure you're voting.
Moving to the midterm election. Special elections do not determine what happens a year later. We do overrate this. But if it is that close, it's going to be a big deal. And one of the things when you get to election day that campaigns say to themselves, it's a true Republican or Democrat, Megan knows it, is you ask yourself, did we leave everything on the field? And my fear for Republicans on this one is they didn't leave.
The other thing I would say is AOC went to campaign. AOC went down there to campaign or campaigned on the teletown hall. You understand what that to me is saying something, which is AOC is now so popular among Democrats and not unpopular enough with Republicans that she's just considered to be a positive for boosting the base, which is a very good sign for 2028. I hope AOC does not pass on running for president. I think everybody who's telling AOC to pass on running for president is a piece of shit. I'll be honest with you. Because there's no good alternative. There's no one who's like a progressive who I think would be better than AOC that's running. So there's no reason for her to wait. There's no reason for her to wait. So I think she should run. Now, if there's somebody who's really left wing who emerges who's even more popular than her, fine. I think Zoran should run for Chuck Schumer's Senate seat. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. I think he should go into New York City. He should knock out free childcare. He should knock out freezing the rent. He should knock out an expansion on free buses. And he should be like, done. Run for Senate. That's my personal take. Did you see this about AOC in California? Yeah. We did talk about that, but we'll keep pushing. Hold on.
Everything on the field. And I say that not about Mike Johnson and the NRC. They have left everything on the field. But Donald Trump should have gone on the ground. Donald Trump used to love doing political rallies. I'm surprised he didn't do it here. We saw him phone it in, but that's exactly what he did. He phoned it in. If Donald Trump had gone on the ground in Tennessee and done a big rally for this, he would have been able to claim credit if Republicans win tonight about how he brought this race home. That to me.
Jerkstore says, Mike, I have a dumb question. Does the DNC send funding or openly back candidates to the primary phase? It's clear the DNC has preference for conservatives, so I wonder how left candidates should handle moderates. I'm specifically thinking about the governor's race here in Wisconsin. The answer is yes. What the fuck? The Democrats are constantly spending money on primaries to elect a conservative candidate. They do it nonstop.
Megan literally phoned it in. Doug really means it. He literally put on speakerphone yesterday. Megan, big deal or no big deal?
So I think the big deal is actually what's happening before anybody's even to vote for this. I think that we're even talking about it in a Trump plus 22 district is a huge deal for Democrats. And it also just shows that the Democrats have a chance to open up the map.
Boss makes $1, I make a penny. That's why I watched the Central Committee. We made it rhyme. We got it going.
Into places that they have not been able to do in a long time. People are tired of Donald Trump's policies. They're tired of Congress bending the knee to Donald Trump. And so they are looking for a different option here, whether it's a more liberal Democrat or a more conservative Democrat. We don't know, but I think that this just gives Democrats an option to expand the
Shut
map
up, Megan. Shut up, Megan.
Far beyond frontline districts.
Shut the fuck up,
Republicans
Megan.
are working hard to avoid an upset in a deep red congressional district, one the president carried by 22 points just last year. The race is so close, House Speaker Mike Johnson has been on the
Open Presence has gifted 25 gifted subs.
ground
Thank you, sir.
with Republican Matt Van Epps and even brought in the president for a phone call.
The whole world is watching. This is a big deal because right now we're like 3 votes up on the radical left, and this would be a wonderful victory for us. It'll be really a positive.
Joining me now to discuss, Emily Cochran, domestic correspondent for the New York Times. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So first, I want to talk about the attention on this special election. We, like politics, we're always covering every little race here and there, thinking that they mean something for the national conversation. But what is special about this special election?
It's the last special election of 2025, so I think a lot of people are looking for any kind of tea leaves ahead of the midterms next year. But as you said, it's unusual for Tennessee to get this level of attention, and I think both Republicans and Democrats are taking advantage of all of those national eyes and also of those national dollars as well.
So Speaker Johnson, we mentioned, has been campaigning hard, and he was...
Why are you and Haas riding for Afton when she's not asking socialists? She seems progressive, and she seems sort of like she's just cashing in on the momentum. Is it just that she said Tennessee? She also said good shit about Gaza. Hasn't she spoken out about Gaza? Or am I misremembering? I thought she did. She was endorsed when she ran for her state ledge by DSA as well. And she has no AIPAC money. For me, the number one issue, my number one issue is, are you anti-Israel? If a person is anti-Israel, I support them critically. I see her rat fuck interview with Madhu? No, I didn't. I did see part of it. All right, be right back.
Asked if this is basically these other elections a kind of warning sign this year for Republicans, especially in a district that Trump won by so much. And here's what he told reporters there.
Is this a warning sign for the GOP that you are barnstorming the state the first day back from Thanksgiving recess in a state that went 20 points for Trump and you have to be here campaigning so hard?
No, ma'am, I did this all last year. He just happens to be the only race in the country right now, so he got my full attention. But we're delighted to be here to campaign for somebody who is so highly qualified, and we're very much looking forward to having him join us.
What's going on with this race? How close is it? And is Van Epps in a position where he needs his support?
I think Van Epps wouldn't say no to any kind of support from Mike Johnson or President Trump. He got the endorsement from President Trump before he even made it out of the Republican primary. I do think, considering how successful Republicans have been in this district, which was drawn to favor a Republican candidate, it is making some Republicans nervous. The couple of polls that we have seen show it to be closer than they would expect. And I think for Democrats who are still very frustrated about how a Nashville-based seat was cut up into these three other districts, I think for Democrats, it's giving them a jolt of energy. It's proving, they hope, that they can either do an upset or that they can close the margins and have people believe that it's viable to be a Democrat in the South.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so many people look at Tennessee and see a very red state. That's how it performs in the presidential elections. Are there progressives, liberals, Democrats there who are hoping for more attention? How do you see that?
Absolutely. Since the redistricting, there's just been a deep frustration. And I think State Representative Afton Bain, who is from probably one of the more liberal corners of an already blue city, she's tapped into some of that frustration and some of that enthusiasm to prove that if Nashville and some other more liberal, more blue parts of the district, if they rally behind a candidate, they can beat a Republican. It is still favored for Republicans. This district stretches from the Kentucky border to the Alabama border. It goes through a lot of rural counties. It goes through parts of Williamson County, which is a Republican power center at this point. So everyone here knows that it's a tough race for a Democrat to beat, but it's certainly tighter than folks were expecting.
That's Emily Cochran of the New York Times. Thanks so much.
All right, chat. Let's take a look at some more of the polling. Obviously, Nashville is gerrymandered to shit. There's no doubt about it. Let's take a look at the districts in Tennessee just so you can see just how bad it is. Look at how 7, 6, and 5. Look at that. Davidson County has 3 different congressional members in one county. And notice how these, like, they come in, scoop part of the city, and then flare out and grab all these, like, bumblefuck red counties. These are all gerrymandering attempts to split up Democratic populations. Look at this shit right here. It's like, ooh, what?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Political Power Ranker. Chris Berg, Political Director for Nexstar Affiliates. And joining me, as always, the magic man, the man with the mathematician genes, Spencer Kimball from Emerson College Polling. He's a director there. Spencer, hello. Happy Thanksgiving week.
It's a special time, Chris. Good to be with you, and we get a special election to look at.
We do have a special election, and I made myself a little bit hungry here because I know we're going to talk a little turkey later, too. So first of all, let's talk about this race. We're talking Tennessee special election, House District 7.
All right, that's our mission. I retweeted it, so if you want to see Sabrina Carpenter response, the ratio is going crazy.
Two new candidates, Matt Van Epps, Republican, and Afton Bain, Democrat. They are going head-to-head in a race that most thought...
Jelly Dog in it says, Knoxville DSA supports her, but she's not endorsed. I know this is pedantic, but I am so annoyed that people are saying I'm wrong about this. No, I mean, that sounds... By the way, I like that. I think DSA should do that. I think DSA should have 4 levels of opinion on a candidate. Uninvolved, supports, or excuse me, uninvolved, tactically aligned, endorsed, and then supports. Like DSA should be able to have those, different distinctions. Like endorsing someone is not the same thing as supporting them. Supporting them is when you take the resources, the limited resources you have, and you're deploying it in a race. Whereas endorsing is, I like this candidate, I support their campaign, they align with us, we endorse this person. You can endorse someone without going all out to support them. I think DSA should be more comfortable with having those gradations of support and alignment. I don't like people that are like, we only endorse people that we fully support. And it's like, I think that's excessively conservative. What was the song compared with? Oh, it was paired with a bunch of ICE agents abusing migrants.
It was going to be a Republican runaway. Trump won the district by 20 points, 22 points in 24. And no one expected this because, Spencer, you got some numbers that actually confirm that this is a race that we need to pay attention to because the balance of power in the House is in jeopardy here for Republicans.
Well, it's an exciting race, Chris. And yes, we decided to jump in here, particularly after what we saw in those 2025 races in New Jersey, Virginia, California, Georgia, where the Democrats really did better than expected. So here was a race that we thought might become competitive. And we jumped in the field this week on Monday and Tuesday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We collected the data. We have a sample of about 600, a margin of error of about plus or minus 3.9%, which is about an 8-point swing. But one key point of the weighting for this polling as compared to previous polls is that this is intended to look at likely voters here in the 7th district. So it's not a general audience poll. It's not even a registered voter poll. It drills down to who they think is likely to vote. And when we look at those numbers, it looks not like a 22-point district that Trump won by, but closer to like a 10, 12-point district based on those turnout numbers. We'll obviously see what happens come next week. But at this time, that's how the weighting is done. So if you looked at our results here, I don't want you to compare them.
Does endorsement always mean financial backing? No. In fact, a lot of organizations endorse candidates that don't give them any money or volunteer support at all. They will say like, hey, we endorse this candidate, and maybe they'll send out emails or like endorsement mailers or whatever at very low levels of support, right? And then there are when they'll fully support a candidate where they give tens of thousands of dollars, they organize volunteer efforts for. So endorsing and supporting are different things. If you're talking DSA, an endorsement means a promise from the chapter to throw people, time, and resources behind a candidate and a campaign. If that's how you want to define endorse, then we need to have another word for a lower level of positive affirmation that doesn't require throwing everything behind them, in my opinion.
With our New Jersey, Virginia, California, because each survey is a study where we learn different things about the constituents. And in this poll, we decided to weight it based on the turnout model from the primary, where the Republicans outturned the Democrats about 55-45, and then we added in those new voters who didn't vote in the primary, and that's how we got to our weighting scheme. So it's slightly different than what we've used in the past, but we think it's an appropriate method to use based on what we learned from those previous polls.
Great details, Spencer. And
Interesting.
really
That's what I wanted to watch this video for. Okay. So, in other words, I feel like they're going to underestimate Democratic turnout, but not by as much as I thought. So they probably are going to be underestimating Democratic turnout by a point or two. I wonder how much Republicans are going to show up. I feel like they're not. I just don't. I feel like the energy is down for them. So I think she's going to win, guys. I think she's going to win. I don't want to go excessively off one poll because, as he said, he was doing his own. It's all largely based on their own kind of modeling. Man, if she won this district, this would be a legendary upset. What was Connor Lamb's district? How much of a seat was that in 2018? Do you guys remember? I see this happening again. I kind of feel like we're going to see one of these. Somebody said, it seems like Republicans have over gerrymandered. No, this is just what's called a wave. No reasonable gerrymander could predict you losing a district that your Republican nominee won by 22 points 2 years before. This is not a dummy mander. This is a fucking wave of frustration and anger at Donald Trump. Does anyone know by how much? Donald Trump carried this by almost 20 points. Okay, so this is a Connor Lamb situation to me. This is a Connor Lamb style situation to me. It's a special election. Donald Trump is sinking in the polls. Democrats are super pissed off. And Connor Lamb gutted it out by 0.4. I think that Democrats are more mad now and Republicans are more depressed now than they were in 2018. This is not a dummy mander, but this is the worst possible time to gerrymander for Republicans if they're going to lose R plus 10 seats. Right now, I think the generic ballot for Democrats is plus 14. And when you add into the fact that this is a special election, which means who turns out for special elections? Extremely engaged voters. What do extremely engaged voters tend to be? They tend to be more partisan. They tend to be more highly educated. So those are not Donald Trump's base. Donald Trump's base, like the reason why Donald Trump won is he made inroads with lower propensity voters, especially non-college educated people. And there has been no evidence in the entire time that Donald Trump has been president that his base voters turn out for Republicans in special elections. They just don't. The question is the district just so Republican that it doesn't matter? And I gotta tell you, chat, I gotta say, I think she's gonna do it. I think the vibe feels like she's gonna do it. I think it's a coin flip. I think this polling, it's just such a lift. But I tend to think she's gonna do it.
Drilling down into how you got to where we're at today, and those numbers are on the screen. Man, this is a toss-up.
It certainly is. We're going to really drill into some of the counties that are going to tell us who's going to win this race, essentially, come election night. Those early numbers show a 48, 46-point race. That's well within the poll's margin of error. You have 5% undecided with a week to go till the election. And as we dig into those numbers, you'll also see that early vote is benefiting the Democrat. And we'll have to see if the Republicans are able to get out their vote on election day to offset what could be a significant lead for the Democrats.
You know what? I've got someone here joining us that is considered by many the dean of political reporters in the state of Tennessee on the broadcast side. Bob Mueller from WKRN-TV, our Next Star affiliate in Nashville. Nashville is right next to this district in Davidson County. Bob, you're seeing these numbers. You're hearing some of this movement towards Afton Bain. What are you thinking when you see Spencer's numbers first?
Well, they're really kind of verifying what we're seeing on the ground here in Tennessee. As you said, Trump won this district by 22. Mark Green, the congressman who resigned, won it by 21. All the projections were that this would be won by about 10%. But there's no incumbent. These are both brand new candidates. And what we're seeing on the ground was 3 weeks ago, I saw internal numbers that had Van Epps leading by only 7. A week ago, I saw internals that had him leading by only. So it looks like after.
Oh, he's cooked. He's fucking cooked. He's fucking cooked. She's got it. He's got it. There's no way the Republicans turn out in a way that pollsters are modeling correctly. He's cooked. He's cooked.
Is gaining ground. The question is, have they gone to the polls yet? I talked to some Republican pollsters this morning. They're looking at the early voting numbers, and they believe those early voting numbers trend about 5% towards the Republican. That's based on what happened in the primary election, where the Republicans did outperform the Democrats. The key is going to be if Bain can get her people to the polls on election day for her to pull this out.
I think it's over. I think that every Democrat is going to realize we can win, and they're going to be juiced to the max, and they're going to show up. And I think that she's an interesting enough candidate. She's a fun enough candidate. Well, positioned for the district. And I think she's just irreverent enough that there's really nobody is going to be holding back, right? Like, if you're a lefty like me, you see your position on Israel and you're like, that's all I need to hear. Let's fucking go. If you're a regular Democrat, you're like, we can finally fuck over Trump. Like, and because like this race didn't go under the radar, everyone in Nashville is now pumped about it. Everybody knows about it. As I said before, who's not paying attention to this? The people that are not paying attention to this are going to be the less involved voters. That means lower propensity voters. That means not educated. It means more conservative, lower income conservatives, especially. They're not showing up for this. She's got this. I think she has a shot. I think she's gonna pull it off. I think she's gonna pull it off.
We can pull those numbers up again and look at them as.
And I also think the Republican has no motion. He is not charismatic at all. He looks like He looks like the consultant that was hired into your job to do layoffs. Like he looks like the Bobs. He's like the less charismatic third Bob from the Office Space. He's like Pete Buttigieg. Yeah, he's like a Republican Pete Buttigieg.
I got a question for you.
Oh, wait, Hassan is not broadcasting today? I thought he was going on live normal times. What? Did he say he was taking the day off? I thought he said normal. I was watching yesterday. He said normal time. Okay, there's no fucking way. I mean, maybe he'll surprise me. I'm not saying he's not going to stream. I'm just going to say, like, normal time, bro. That's flying from fucking Los Angeles to Ireland is brutal. In her criticism of the resolution, Rep. Afton Bay of Nashville, who used to work in the United Nations, stated Israel is committing genocide funded by the United States, and this resolution condones genocide. She ticked off a list of statistics starting with 46,496 children killed. As of early April, the Gaza Ministry of Health statistics, which come from Hamas and are unverified by any outside source, claims a total of 33,000 killed in Gaza since October 7th. Ministry claims the majority are women and children and does not mention any number of Hamas combatants killed. Israel estimates 14,000 Hamas combatants have been killed, which would make the civilian to combatant killed ratio one of the smallest in the history of warfare. That's bullshit. That's absolutely nonsensical bullshit. God, what propaganda website is this? Fuck. Who is she quoting? Jesus, that's terrible propaganda.
Those early votes, where are they coming from? Do you know? And where would they lean from your perspective?
So there's two main counties I'm looking at. Davidson County, which is part of Nashville. That's the key Democratic turnout area. And the Democrats are doing well there. We have them up about 43 points, and Harris won that area by about 37. So the vote is similar. It's only a 6-point gain. But what we're seeing is a higher turnout coming out of Nashville than what was coming out 2 years ago and 4 years ago. And if that happens, that 6 points really intensifies and is worth a lot more, to the overall vote total. So that's a key county that we're looking at. The other key county is Montgomery. Montgomery, we think, is the bellwether. Montgomery went in 24 for the Republican by about 21 points. And right now we have Montgomery.
All right, chat, we have a hype train going on. You guys spontaneously started this hype train. So if you enjoy the stream, please consider supporting it right now. There's no better time to support the stream than during a hype train. Top sub gifter, top bit donor, get the hype train conductor badge. There's a lot of people here working paycheck to paycheck. Parents of young children, college students, people out of fixed income because of retirement or disability. We're just regular people struggling to make ends meet. When you gift them subs, they get access to Twitch Rewind, where you can watch this. Did you join to the stream late? Well, you can rewind and then play it back at 1.25 or 1.5 speed, catch the whole stream, and then catch up to live. It's amazing, seamless. And that's a benefit of being a subscriber. That, not to mention, you get the tremendous amount of beautifully handcrafted, artistic emotes that every single one comes from the hand of a dedicated artist. If you love our emotes, all of them hatched within the ideas and the brains of a human being, original ideas that no one else has. I'm just kidding. Meritocracy is a myth. Thank you for the 10 tier ones. And K8-Bit, thank you for the 5 tier ones. You guys are the best. Thank you for supporting the stream. Let's keep going.
We're going for the Republican by 1 point. That's the big makeup of ground for the Democrats. That's a 20-point makeup, which explains why this is not a 20-point race, and we're looking at a very close race. Now, these other counties outside of Williamson are very small counties, rural areas, but we'll see their vote generally comes out on election day. So we're going to see if they really push over the top and are able to drive out a red wave, because right now it looks like there's a big blue wave coming in that early voting.
Bob, what do you think of all of that? That's some interesting information to digest.
Well, that's exactly outlines what this district is. It's a huge district. It runs from West Tennessee over by the river at Paris all the way to Nashville and north to Kentucky all the way to Alabama. And as Spencer was saying, the majority of the district is very rural, and votes out there are small. Each county does not have very many votes. Matt Van Epps will win the majority of those rural votes. If she can take a few away, it could really make a difference. The key to this race is Williamson, Davidson, and Montgomery counties. Those 3 counties will decide who wins here. And she needs to have a big turnout, which seems like she's getting in Davidson County. She needs to win Davidson County probably by about 10%. If she can do that, she's got a real shot at this. And I've also seen trends in Montgomery County, a growing county, about to become the 4th largest city, overtaking Chattanooga and with Clarksville. And there's a lot of new folks there, a lot of new voters there, younger folks there. She has spent a lot of time there. And it seems like
thank you for the 10 tier ones. Appreciate you.
It's paying off for her. If she could switch Montgomery County and actually win that would be ballgame.
One last question on the horse race slide, and that's to you, Bob. Kamala Harris shows up to campaign for her. Did she request her? How did that happen? Was it good or bad for her?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I think she was here for an event, and she did some canvassing for Afton. Afton, as my recollection was, didn't join her until late. I don't know if their campaign was connected at all, but they did do the event. It wasn't publicized very much. We didn't know she was in town until it happened that day. So it doesn't look like the Bain campaign asked for her to be here. She was here for something for Fisk, I believe, or TSU, and then decided to do some stuff for Afton.
Fascinating, because
Yes.
since she was here, it got a lot of play. And you guys weren't even told that she was going to be there.
We didn't know she was here till the day of the event.
But I think that speaks to what the Democrats have done in this race and stayed under the radar. They didn't bring in any of their big names to try to bring out. And that under the radar campaign may do better, because what we've seen in the polling is the Democratic brand is not very strong.
Oh my God, I thought I hit mute. I'm so sorry, chat. I'm so sorry. I thought I hit mute. What happened? I'm so sorry. Did I unmute it? Did I unmute it? Oh no. I did hit mute and then I hit unmute. Oh no. I'm so sorry, guys. Oh no. Yeah, VO burned something. So like it went into the burner. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if it was what happened. No, it's not even smoky. Like it's the smallest. Like that thing is sensitive. Jesus. I'm so sorry. I thought I had that on mute.
The Republican brand is stronger, but right now the intensity is with the Democrats. So they may not want to be highlighting their policies as much as they want to be arguing that the Republican policies are bad, and that's what we should be focusing on in the race.
Wreck the viewership, chat. That's gonna shade the viewership a few hundred right there.
It seems to have been effective so far.
Sorry about
that. A lot of times, too, these congressional races become national races as opposed to local races. I think this one's going to be a local race. I think this is going to be about affordability, about health care. The Republican candidate tried to make it more of a national race. He campaigned being pro-Trump, supporting America first, got his back, emphasizing his military service, a pilot in Afghanistan. And about a week and a half ago, that message completely changed because Afton Bain has been talking about nothing but affordability. Suddenly, the Republican candidate is all in on affordability. It changed dramatically.
Did viewership go up? No.
So I think they're seeing some polling that those are going to be the key issues in this race.
It's a great segue to, Spencer, your next slide on favorability.
Well, this is an interesting slide because both candidates have even favorability, 47-41, but the way they get there is very different. So Bain gets there through the independents. She's favorable amongst independents, 55-37. Van Epps gets there through the Republicans, very popular with the Republicans, but not.
Do you think this race was going so badly, Democrats elevated to a national spotlight to try and get more support? Yes. Basically, for Republicans to win this, they need to get their base to turn back out. So in order to, like, they have to scare people, they have to get their base turnout to, because they can see through the numbers that Democrats are turning out like gangbusters, independents are swinging toward her at a level that she could win. So their only way to win is to hold those Republicans and get them to show up and hold them. So by bringing in national money and national attention, they can kind of rescue it.
The independents, he's down 50-35 with that group. So they're getting there. There's a huge Republican vote out there in the district that you can lean into if you're the Republicans. The Democrats need to pull a little Republican vote and then win that independent vote. And that's where Bain sits right now, a week before the election.
Bob?
Yeah, this is a generational change election. This will change the generations of the congressional delegation in Tennessee. This will be the first Gen X or Gen Z person to win this district.
Chat, cheer me up. Cheer me up with the hype train. We were having such a good stream. Now I'm bummed. You know, it's a bummer when you feel like you're having a good stream with good momentum, and then it's like, oh, you accidentally blasted everybody's eardrums out. Because I thought I had it muted. Apparently I muted it, and then I got up and unmuted it. And it bums me out. It just sucks because I lost like 300 people, and that fucking blows, man. It sucks.
He's 42, she's 35. This is a young person's race. They're both very
open presents. Thank you for the 25. Okay, now I'm feeling better. Gamda, thank you for the tier 2 for 53 months.
likable people. They present themselves well. They're both intelligent. They speak well. They don't get flustered. They're good campaigners. They shake hands well. So I can see how the likability is pretty high for both of them. They haven't gone real negative. Most of the negative ads have come from PAC money, not their own. They've kind of attacked each other on issues more than getting into the dirt. The attack ads have really come from the PAC money.
And we have seen a gender divide there. It seems like the women are breaking more for and the men are breaking slightly more for the Republican, which is what
kind of
we've
a national
seen.
trend too.
Exactly.
But Bob, Guy, maybe just a quick reaction on this. Just in the past couple of days, really over the weekend.
Pterosaurus Rec, thank you for the 5 tier 1s. Appreciate you guys for subbing. Appreciate you.
Oppo research on the Republican side seems to have just exploded with little tidbits of Afton Bain's past social media, past podcasts. Is that going to have any impact, you think, or is it too late?
I think it's too late.
I don't think people give a shit about that anymore. I think if you're one of those people that are like, oh my God, I can't believe that you had a bad clip on a podcast. Oh my God, I can't believe you had a bad clip on a podcast. Nobody gives a fuck. It doesn't work anymore.
I think a lot of that stuff goes like this. It's because there's so much of it out there. Now, the fact that they got her on Cape saying I hate Nashville, it was a little out of context, but it's a strong statement that she has lived up to here in Tennessee and talked about. She was talking about traffic and growth and things that the congestion. But that's a negative. That doesn't help her campaign. But I think these really.
Everybody understands that is not her really expressing how she hates Nashville. That was an expression of her frustration with tourism and a certain type of obnoxious partier. Which, I'm sorry, chat, but all of us hate obnoxious partiers.
Hardcore negative ads that have hit both these candidates. I don't think they make that much difference this late in the race. When it's this close, I think it's going to be issues. I think it's who they believe are going to make their lives a little bit better affordably is who's going to win this race.
Couple more slides before we have to take a break. Spence, we got Trump approval.
Yeah, this is a really important slide because
I just apologized for making loud shrieking noises and then I made another one. Do you approve or disapprove of the job Donald Trump is doing as president? 49 disapprove, 47% approve. I think that's going to be the result. I think that's going to be the result. I think she's going to get 49%. He's going to get 47%. And that's all she wrote. Honestly, the fire alarm going off made my day better because it gave me an excuse to say wee woo. Just let me forget about it, chat. It's okay. It's okay.
As the president's approval rating amongst this group of voters, remember, it's not the whole district, it's amongst likely voters and people who've already voted, is underwater. It's at 47%. So if you're running on Trump's coattails as the Republican...
To be honest, that's still a disapproving result for this poll. Guys, this is a district that voted for Trump by 22%. This isn't a national number. This is a district that voted for Trump by 22%. It has swung over 20 points against him. That means Donald Trump is somewhere around the range of like 30 something, low 30% approval rating with regular people. Like that is, he's down to the fascist base. This number is unbelievably good news. If he's unpopular in a super gerrymandered Republican district in Tennessee, he's fucking cooked.
Those are short coattails right now because you're not going to get to that 50% threshold based on the favorability of the president alone. So we'll see if this number, if the turnout model changes and Republicans get fired up over the weekend and they come out. But right now it looks as if Trump is slightly underwater, and that's really bad news for the Republican trying to use him as association to get to the office.
And I think the Republican campaign saw these numbers or saw this trend because it was 2 weeks ago. They actually had Trump do a teleconference in town to try to get voters encouraged and early vote. MAGA Inc. put in a bunch of money doing some phone banks to get people to the polls. And about a week after that, Van Epps changed his campaign. It went from embracing Trump to just not mentioning Trump, but talking about affordability and health care.
That Republican vote he can get out, but the Trump is losing him the independents. He's down 25 points in approval. So that's where the Democrat can say, hey, look what's happening that's what the policies Van Epps is going to carry forward. And that's obviously striking a chord with the voters.
And Bob, quick question. Has Bill Lee been on the campaign trail for Matt Van Epps?
I don't know if he has. I've not seen him. We've covered the campaign quite a bit, and I have not seen him out there. As you know, he endorsed him and has said some things about him in the press, but I haven't seen him on the campaign trail. That's not that he hasn't been. I just don't know that personally.
That's Governor Bill Lee. As I shortened it up, I need to give him the respect that he's earned over a couple of cycles.
Yep, two-term governor.
Absolutely. Let's go to the issues that you found, Spence, in this slide.
Well, it's about the economy here. Very interesting to see healthcare pop up as an issue as well. We haven't seen that really in our polling around the country. Obviously, the economy's up there, but the healthcare issue that came to light this last week with the government shutdown.
Crime 5%. Oh, it's Jover. It's so fucking immigration 6%. It's fucking Jover. Tennessee is pissed about housing affordability. Holy fucking hell, dude. Jesus Christ.
Down in the subsidies. Bob, any thoughts on how these issues are playing on the campaign trail, and have the Republicans pivoted away from maybe the Trump and into more of the affordability?
They're talking exactly about affordability, but they're not pivoting away from Trump in that what's hurting the Republicans in Tennessee are the Trump tariffs. The governor's still embracing the tariffs. The Republican Party's still embracing the tariffs, saying down the road, they're all going to be great. But the farmers in Tennessee are all going bankrupt. They have no market for their soybeans. The Trump tariffs on China shut that market down. The Trump tariffs on Canada shut down Tennessee whiskey makers. They've lost their markets. These people are hurting. The White House knows that. They've talked about bailouts, but these farmers and whiskey manufacturers don't want bailouts. They want their markets back. And I asked Van Epps about this, and he did not back off any support for Trump's tariffs at all, which surprised me a little bit. But he has, as I said, switched his message to he's going to work for more affordability, improving health care. He hasn't said how yet.
Oh, it sounds like he's running like a centrist Democrat.
Afton Bain, that's been her campaign theme since the very beginning. And she's talking about,
she's winning. She's going to win. She's actually going to win. The moment you're copying your opponent's talking points, it's fucking over. People, why vote for the off-brand? Vote for the real thing. That's why when people are like, Democrats need to move right on immigration or right on trans issues, actually all that's happening is you're talking about your opponent's strongest position. And you're making the race about your opponent's strongest position. Therefore, you will lose. There's two sides to this coin. The first is you have to know where the people are, and you have to not be deluded about it. That's number one. The second thing is talk about the issues that they like you more on. So it's a nexus between what is relevant to people, what are they passionate about, and what do they like you more. And that's what you talk about.
Incentives for healthcare so that the premiums don't go through the roof, which they will at the first of the year, and looking for more ways to help farmers other than bailouts, but to get their markets back are alternative ways. So she's addressing it head on. He has just now started to address it.
And that becomes an issue of time because we are 1 week away as we record this program.
With Thanksgiving in between.
Yes, exactly. We're a little distracted with football and turkey eating. And shocker that I'd mentioned turkey, because we've got a turkey of a poll coming up right after the break. Stay with us.
A turkey of a poll?
But with Spencer now,
and while we do the politics and we like the pre-election polling, there is a space for survey research on just generally people's attitudes about different issues and social scenes. So that's what we're going to take a look at for a few minutes, Chris.
So this is a show about politics, and we've heard over the past several years, especially since the Trump era began in 2015, no one wants to talk about politics around the Thanksgiving dinner table. And I think you found that to be true.
Yeah, once again, Chris, we're in the minority. So about a third of us like to talk politics.
If you are visiting with family or friends with this Thanksgiving, are you looking forward to discussing politics? Or are you hoping to? Oh, okay. So this is Thanksgiving already happened, so we don't care. Would you happy eating turkey or something else? Are you fucking crazy? This is why I'm a tanky, chat. This is why I'm a tanky. I had a Wellington, and you know what I said? Thank fucking God. I'm not eating turkey. I'm eating a delicious Wellington. Fuck turkey. And somebody's like, shit take. I've had so much turkey in my life. And I can count on one hand the number of times where I was like, yeah, that was some pretty good turkey. But when I'm talking about beef, I can count on one hand where I'm like, that beef sucked. You're just not putting enough gravy. Why don't I just drink gravy instead? You don't like turkey, you like condiments.
So only 1 out of 4 sitting around that table is like, I wish we had something else to eat. But we're generally happy with turkey. I don't think that's going to change as our main course. So if, depending on your political group that's sitting at the table, you might want to have a few.
Liking turkey is Republican coded. True. Why is that? Because it's tradition, and you're just sticking with the tradition, even though it sucks. And you're like, back in the day, we used to do turkeys because turkeys were very big and inexpensive. So it's a lot of protein for everybody. We were eating meat, but it's less expensive. And nowadays, it's like, honestly, the turkey price advantage is really cratered. But it really says something. It really says something that if you are happy to eat turkey, you're Republican. True.
Extra side dishes, depending on their political persuasion.
That's fascinating. I didn't think it was
people who are just
He's a little bit national news.
Who did not.
Weeks.
I think they, but hasn't really gone somewhere where he would be challenged.
They're making their predictions.
Her campaign has been a little bit more non-traditional. She's been in the belly of the beast. She's gone into the Republican counties. He's done it more by the books, on TV, a little on social media, done some events in safe districts, but hasn't really gone somewhere where he would be challenged. I think she's gonna come out stronger for that, and that may give her the chance to again make this.
They're predicting her? They're predicting she's gonna win? Damn. That's
flip.
Now, Tennessee's a red state.
It is. It would be a big upset.
And you've got a governor's race next year. Does a Ashton Bain victory give any Democrat a little bit of hope next year?
Statewide is going to be tough. They own right now 8 of the 9 congressional districts, supermajority in both legislative houses, the governor's race, both Senate races. It's going to be tough to win statewide for any Democrat. And it's really going to be another time, though, that they have a chance, because it will be a non-incumbent race. It's going to be all new candidates for governor. So if there's a chance, that's when it will happen for them.
I'm sure there are a bunch of Democrats who have fingers crossed heading into turkey season and next week, exactly 1 week from today. I do have one up and down that I want to share with you guys. My up are 2 people, Gobble and Waddle, 2 turkeys that the turkey every Sunday. Have a great weekend.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, and in case you were wondering, Davidson County is where Nashville is. These are the congressional districts for Tennessee, and Davidson County is where Nashville is. You notice how it's divided among 3 districts? Sexism says she's pro-ICE, probably because he just hates women. It's because he just hates women, guys. So he sees the successful female candidate who opposes the war in Gaza, has protested ICE herself, and he just wants to sabotage. It's called being a wrecker. It's called being a wrecker. Now listen, I am giving her critical support. I hope she doesn't go, I hope she doesn't have some sort of like right-wing veer. There's going to be a lot of pressure on her in a very Republican district to go to the right. So I want to be as supportive of her as we can be. Her position on Israel is so important. If people could win deep red states and deep red districts being pro-Palestine, you guys understand how that is a huge shift. I think one of the things that's happened with a lot of online commentators is they've gone mentally ill because America has fixed election dates. And we can't change policy. There is no vote of no confidence. We can't call early elections. And the people that have been in power, the sclerotic, America is a Titanic. It is a slow-moving ship. And to change its direction is extraordinarily difficult. But I could see the tides are turning. And on Israel in particular, we are starting to win. Ceasefire violation. IDF troops identified 2 suspects who crossed the yellow line, carried out suspicious activities, and approached the troops in southern Gaza, posing an immediate threat. The IAF eliminated the suspects to remove the threat. In another incident in the area, IDF troops identified a terrorist who crossed the yellow line and approached the troops, posing an immediate threat. The troops eliminated the terrorist to remove the threat. The suspects were children aged 11 and 8 years old. Obama used the ship analogy to justify not taking sweeping corrective action in the wake of 2008. Yeah, but he was lying then. Do you understand that we haven't had some sort of landslide win where we control 60 Senate seats? Obama was just lying because he doesn't support progressive change. Whereas now we don't have any power. I understand why people are very skeptical of anything happening because nothing ever happens and Obama broke your heart and Bernie didn't win. And the left grew in power and there was a lot of close calls, but we didn't win. It's like people are mad we don't have a championship banner hanging in the rafters. And it's like, well, you have to win, man. Here's one of her ads she put out. Remember, Sexism says she loves ICE.
The ICE operation happened.
I think he just hates women, legitimately. From ICE watch to an abduction attempt, here's why I won't back down.
In Nashville. And at the time, my social work
intern... audio
intern...
playing? I can't hear anything. My audio broke. I tried to fix it, but I thought I did.
And I were canvassing. The ICE operation happened in Nashville. And at the time, my social work intern and I were canvassing the Hispanic households. And we were learning that they didn't feel their local electeds and state electeds were doing enough for them. And 2, that they were being racially profiled. It was their number 1 issue. So I took that as a mandate. So I went out on ICE Watch. Well, they didn't like that we were trailing them. They pulled us over. They cited us a ticket. So inevitably, I recorded this video that was retweeted by Representative Andy Ogles, who called for my arrest. Following that, the Department of Homeland Security called for my arrest.
By the way, chat, this is exactly what good left-wing politicians look like. They go into a community, they talk to people that are not the same as them. And they say, hey, we're being racially profiled, we're being targeted. And she immediately sprung into action. Direct action right away. What more can you ask for than that? That is amazing.
Had 3 weeks of
Hassan cooks in a Marxism yesterday. Do you have that clip? I'll watch it. That sounds funny. By the way, don't call him Marxism. He's never read Marx. Like, his name is offensive to me. Guy's never read the books. He calls himself Marxist and he's never read the books. Fucking gross. It is sexism. And it's like, listen, I believe in direct action. I really do. But I don't like use that to then attack other avenues of attempt to build the socialist movement. Electoral politics is important to people because the American government does a lot of shit. I don't know, you know, maybe if you're 25, you don't know that. If you don't have kids and you're 25 years old and you don't have any responsibilities and you don't have anyone depending upon you, maybe you don't understand how much of these structures exist where people are literally will die without them. And you could kind of like disdain attempting to protect institutions like food stamps or whatever, or Medicare. But millions will die if that stuff goes away. It's really pathetic that he goes into J. Marianne's chat to complain instead of saying what he truly feels about Hassan's shithole community, actual words. I mean, that's what these wreckers do, right? They pretend to be nice to Hassan's face, and then, you know, because they're trying to get people to watch their little shitty streams, and then they go into their streams and they do non-stop fucking slander of Hassan, and then Hassan doesn't know that's what they do because Hassan doesn't watch their streams. He just thinks of them as like fans of his and supporters of his that are working on projects of their own, and he gives them a nice word. But he doesn't realize that these people are actually, they have ill intent for him. They also don't want you to know that, right? Like, they are duplicitous. They'll pretend like they hate my guts, for example. My takes are pretty much the same as Hassan's on a lot of these issues. Maybe mine are even a little bit more left than Hassan. He's more pro-elections than I am. How could you hate me and love Hassan? If the reason is substance, that doesn't make any sense. Aren't food stamps basically subsidies for grocery stores, so it hurts local businesses more than it helps individual people? No, local businesses can accept food stamps. Out of the loop, who's the Cinna dude? Honestly, it doesn't matter. If you don't know who he is, you're in good company. You're most people. Cinna who?
Nonstop calls and emails threatening my life. And then the following Sunday, I was at my office in Cordell, and I'd parked in the loading dock for easy access.
Doesn't slander Hassan. You're delusional. You're fucking, unless you think him calling him a fucking home of anti-Semites and white supremacists is not slandering, then you're fucking insane.
To my office. 30 minutes in, a security officer knocks on my door and says, I have to escort you back to your car because someone tried to abduct you.
They were wearing a ski mask. Me last night. Nobody cares. Nobody noticed. Nobody cares and nobody noticed. I'm just reacting to people telling me that he attacked her in Hassan's chat. He called all of Hassan's chat ICE supporters yesterday. Bro, get on meds. Get on meds. Anyway, we're going to watch this thing and not talk about him. We're going to enjoy watching. This is what I want to see. This is what a baseline Democrat should be.
The ICE operation happened in Nashville. And at the time, my social work intern and I were canvassing the Hispanic households. And we were learning that they didn't feel their local electeds and state electeds were doing enough for them. And two, that they were being racially profiled. It was their number one issue. So I took that as a mandate. So I went out on ICE Watch. Well, they didn't like that we were trailing them. They pulled us over. They cited us a ticket. So inevitably, I recorded this video that was retweeted by Representative Andy Ogles, who called for my arrest. Following that, the Department of Homeland Security called for my arrest. I had 3 weeks of nonstop calls and emails threatening my life. And then the following Sunday, I was at my office in Cordell, and I'd parked in the loading dock for easy access to my office. 30 minutes in, a security officer knocks on my door and says, I have to escort you back to your car because someone tried to abduct you. They were wearing a ski mask and gloves, and they tried to follow you into Cordell Hall, and the door closed as you were walking in. And then they proceeded to take photos of your car, and I was able to chase them off the property. And I just want to pause because it highlights a moment of where we have legislators who are getting assassinated, right? Like, this has reached a point of full-blown violence, and it's a really scary time. And yet you're probably like, oh, why, Afton? Why are you running for Congress then? Because that's how much we have to lose. Sure. I'm willing to put it all on the line and to risk my life because that is how deeply I feel about this moment and this opportunity to make a difference in this state and this country. The ICE operation happened in Nashville. And at the time, my social work intern and I were canvassing the Hispanic households, and we were learning that they didn't feel their.
She's cool, guys. This is cool. Don't mean to derail, but the tide is absolutely shifting. Very popular commentary YouTuber Drew Gooden just uploaded a video called "Greed is Destroying the World." I called the fucking top. Oh, I called the top. Woo! By the way, chat, I haven't heard a lot from Asmongold lately. He hasn't been going viral lately. What happened? What's going on with Asmongold these days? What's he doing? How's the turd doing? He seems pretty quiet. Drew Gooden. That's a good name, by the way. I like that name. 1.3 million views. Okay, we might have to check this out, chat. The vibes are shifting. We can feel the vibes shifting. 58% of people supporting rent control. All right, chat. It's time for you all to get a little socialism in you. Bestie Marks has put out a video called Lenin's Formula for Revolution and Why It Worked. Oh my God, this is based. Holy shit. By the way, chat, if you want to understand my formulation for politics, I am best described as a centrist Marxist in the sense that I think that we should do everything all at once.
Even though the October Revolution happened over a century ago, and even though there is not yet the imminent threat of such a thing happening in the West...
Marxism is just a slandering loser? What's this? Just wild that abolish ICE is seen as record behavior. Generally open defense for maintaining the Gestapo in the chat just then. I wasn't shitting on her. I'm not even hating. I just said people should answer yes. So we should abolish ICE. GOP is abolishing the Department of Education, but we can't talk about abolishing ICE. Maintaining the Gestapo in that chat. Socialism or barbarism? I'm sorry that this stuff came out. I thought Gremlo was chill with all of us, but I didn't realize that he was so deep involved in like the kind of clout farming and the like pocket watching, you know, calling me clout from PA, defending sexist behavior against VO. Like he really showed his ass. I thought we were fine. I mean, I never was a fan. Like I never watched his content because it never really appealed to me. I didn't really see why anybody would watch Gremlo, like, to be dead honest. But just because I don't personally like someone's content doesn't mean that I'm going to shit on them, right? Like you're allowed to just not watch somebody. But apparently there was this real, like, I would call it hostility. And there's these kind of weird stalker communities that he's been cultivating, like these very vicious, he's kind of like wormed his way in where he tries to like support these like very vicious people that spend almost all their time slandering me and Hassan. And he kind of like foments that and supports it. And it's like, okay, we can see what you're doing, Gremlo. You pushing all your audience into these like slanderous communities that hate us and spend all their time trying to get us canceled or try to boost negative shit about us. Like, we know what you're doing, man. It's not like confusing. It's not a surprise. And it's weird because I've only ever been nice to the guy and supportive and friendly. Like, you know what I mean? It's like weird. It's this... I would call it really like a right-wing mentality. Maybe it's because he used to be a Nazi, and so maybe he hasn't completely moved on from it. But they have this like austerity mentality where there's only so much good to go around. So if I'm doing well, or Vio's doing well, or Dedums is doing well, that means that he is necessarily like losing. And so for him to succeed, we have to go down. And it's just like weird. Yeah. Gremlo used to be a white supremacist. And he says he still has family that are white supremacists. So I don't know if he's still, I don't know what that is, but it is what it is. I mean, Gremlo talking about Mike. Oh, this is a long time. Jesus. What the fuck?
You have lost like credibility on this. That's why.
Vio says, read what what have I lost credibility on? By the way, chat, notice that that's not substantive. When you're trying to discredit someone, you will attack their credibility when you can't deal with their argument. So you will try to make people not even listen to what they're saying. It's called poisoning the well. Like if you consider me to be an unreliable or malicious person, you're not even going to listen to what I'm saying, right? Because I'm a bad person. So why would you? I'm lying. I'm tricking you. So why would you ever listen to me? So attacking my credibility is a way of how do we put this? Getting you to close your ears to me and dehumanize me at the same time. I refuse to make everything I do content match. It's so funny to see him talk about ICE when he tried to lie, saying that I told people sexism called ICE on me to make it sound even more insane. Especially because lying about me saying shit like that literally puts me in danger with ICE. LMAO. The dude doesn't give a shit about immigrants. I mean, Vio, you are an immigrant and you have spread pro-Palestinian messaging, and we've seen people lose green cards for supporting Palestine. Like, so to bring up you and ICE in the same sentence is absolutely a vile and individual personal threat. And I don't care what else sexism says, that blows away any videoing other people protesting ICE. If you are targeting an individual immigrant, that is beyond the pale. And if I find out that's true, like my God, that's crazy. No, he's saying Vio said that to make her look unhinged. I'm not going to say anything more.
Because my problem isn't even with you, Vio. My main problem is not with you. It's with Mike's crusty ass.
What? What problem does he have with me? Huh? See what I mean? Where it's just like, what? Huh? He looks like he's, by the way, chat, you know what his hair, he looks like he's trying to get the haircut of the bull, fuck, what show is that? Fuck, the cartoon. What cartoon is that? He looks like Roger from Doug. Yes! 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 It's giving Roger Klotz! This guy tries to talk shit! We got Roger Klotz over here! Oh my God, dude. It's so funny for him to like talk big. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Please stop. It doesn't even feel good to like try to counter bully this guy because it's just like, what the fuck are you doing? I have never in my life wanted to be friends with Gremlo. I just want to understand that. Like, at no point in my life was I like, oh my God, Gremlo and Cinemarxism. I want to be their friends. It was just professional courtesy and kindness where I was like, these guys are in a similar space to me. We should have positive relations. That just makes sense, right? We agree on a lot of things. We should all pull in the same direction. But in no way was I like, oh my God, Gremlo, please tell me about your life being a Nazi. Like, what are you talking about?
You didn't even bother listening to me? Why? Why would I?
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy, Chad. I don't want to make this about Gremlo because it's honestly giving him too much attention. But Jesus Christ, what a douchebag. What a douchebag. Get this the fuck off my screen. We have a much more important, cool left-wing video to watch. I don't have the clip, but Hassan yells at Cinemarxism at tide code 44850 on the vid yesterday. Fuck. Can you give me the direct link? Like, you don't, like, just...
Cinemarxism. This answer should be easy yes with anyone with a soul. Yeah, it's a fucking plus 25 Trump district, man. Calm down, okay? Even if her answer is yes, you're trying to win a fucking election. Jesus Christ.
Right now, chat, we're trying to get the Republicans out of control of at least one branch of Congress. Now, obviously, the Democratic establishment is fucking weak and pathetic, but this is someone who is at least sympathetic to us currently. And in a deep red district, this will open up the realm of political possibility and arguments with liberals going forward. We could be like, a progressive, pro-Palestinian won a Trump plus 22 district. We don't need to go to the center, which is exactly the debate we're going to be having in 2028. Do we go to the center to try to appeal to the Republicans and the people that went to Trump, or do we run a bold, progressive, affordability, economic populist message that doesn't throw immigrants under the bus, that doesn't throw trans people under the bus, but is promising to make real material change for the working class? That's the argument we're heading into. And so you're like, no, only maximalist positions from every candidate. Are you stupid? It's crazy. She has demonstrated sympathy for our position time and time and time again. And you don't want to give her any space to operate because you don't think that having elections won by leftists matters. So you're undermining the project intentionally because you don't think it matters, because you think whatever your project is not getting the attention it deserves because elections are happening and left-wingers are winning them. That's a distraction from your documentary or whatever the fuck. That's nuts. And yes, these people are to my right. I understand they're to my right, but I'm seeing them come in my direction every year. Faye hasn't even won, and people are like, this is what we're running against. Worth noting that the candidates who put off these big upsets for Democrats, Travis Childers, Cotter Lamb, and Dan Kazaltz, are nowhere near Afton Bay in ideology. A more moderate candidate would have probably put the Dems in an even stronger spot. No, this is what we're trying to push back against. Like, this is pathetic shit. This is what we're pushing back against. And you might think leftism is credible. You might think left-wing politics is right. You might think that socialism is correct. But the vast masses of the American people have not been radicalized. They have not been made class conscious. They have not considered socialism as a real ideology that they could consider supporting. It's only now, with the youngest generations, that we are making progress. You have an idea that we are 10 miles down the road further than we actually are. And it's not because I'm not, radical enough in my language.
The ghost of 1917 still haunts the powerful and reactionary, which is why they still beat about it, slander it, and spread fear about it even where it does not exist. Because even though the danger of communism is not urgent yet, they must demonize and falsify its history to prevent the revolutionary movement from growing, especially during times where more and more people look for lessons to change the world. The October Revolution shook the foundations of world imperialism and thereby decisively sparked the struggle of the international proletariat and the colonized against the imperialist bourgeoisie. Everyone seriously...
By the way, it's still relevant today. Look what we're doing to Venezuela. Look what we're doing to Venezuela right fucking now. That's the imperialist bourgeoisie. The same systems of 1919 are the same systems of 2025. We have not defeated it. It is not irrelevant. This is still what's happening today. So containing the American bourgeoisie is absolutely vital. And that's our job as the American proletariat, to contain them.
Wanting to change this global system based on oppression, climate destruction, and mass slaughter must learn about its history. What strategy enabled the revolutionaries to topple the ruling class in the biggest country on earth? Which of its aspects could be applied everywhere? And what are the concepts developed and applied by its leaders, which form the basis of any successful proletarian revolution? Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov was born in 1870 in Zimbirsk, a quiet town in the heart of Russia that would later be renamed Ulyanovsk in his honor. Some decades earlier, the massive Pugachev peasant rebellion had found strong support in this region, which was still home to many oppressed nationalities long resentful of the empire's grip. The Ulyanovs were not wealthy, but they were doing reasonably okay by provincial standards. His father, who died when Vladimir was still a teenager, had risen from a serf background to become a physics teacher. His mother, who lived until just a year before the October Revolution, had also been a teacher, but dedicated her time to raising the family's many children. Her life was anything but easy. Over just a few years, she lost her husband, 2 children, saw one executed, and the other 3 imprisoned or exiled. Vladimir enjoyed a normal education and had a close relationship with his older brother, Alexander, with whom he liked to study. They were such nerds together that whenever someone disturbed them, they'd say, "Kindly favor us with your absence. We have to study." Vladimir quickly made a mark as the pride of the school, as his school supervisor would call him. History often has a sharp sense of irony. That supervisor's son was none other than Alexander Kerensky, the future head of the Russian government, which was to be overthrown by a movement led by the former pride of the school. Before we move on, I just want to say that I put a lot into making these videos and support them.
I 100% think that you should enjoy these history videos and you should learn this history. I think every socialist has a duty to learn this history. Because if you're going to disregard a path of liberation, you should at least understand the history that exists. And you should also understand the flaws of what came before. Mike, Western online leftists do not understand that the movement needs a civil political arm to galvanize the populace and exhaust all options before going to the hills. They fantasize about Che without realizing it took years of Castro building up a political arm with friendly leaders and journalists to finally reach a place where an armed rebellion was plausible. When he tried on his own, he couldn't build up that civil political arm and all his attempts failed. Yes, exactly. That's my point. We need people like AOC. We need people like Zoran to go into office, and you could see the assault they get by everyone in the establishment over very reasonable concessions. That has to be shown to the people.
Patreon makes it possible for me to keep doing them the way I do. If you can afford it and want to help the channel grow and stay alive, your support really matters. Every single person who contributes is greatly appreciated. Thank you. In the 1860s, the vast majority of Russia was still peasants. The so-called Edict of Emancipation we talked about in the last video formally freed Russia's peasantry from serfdom. This was not because Russia's ruler, Tsar Alexander II of the House of Romanov, had sympathy for the poor, as was the propaganda back then, but out of adapting to the new economic reality. Industrialization needed a large workforce, and the new banks needed to grow. The noble landowners, looking to profit in the new markets, needed more people to become wage laborers. So this reform replaced feudal bondage with bondage through debt, which in order to repay, much of the destitute peasantry had to find seasonal work in the quickly growing towns. Back then, the seasonal workers with close ties to the peasantry were more numerous than permanent industrial workers. This interconnection will further the solidarity between workers in the cities and the peasants in the villages, as we will see.
Interesting.
In the 1870s, Russia ended its state oil monopoly and opened the oil-rich Caucasus to private companies. Since Russia industrialized later than Western Europe, its government and banks partnered with and relied heavily on loans and investments from powerful Western capitalists. One of them was the ultra-wealthy Nobel family, which built the largest oil refineries. The chemist and capitalist Alfred Nobel, who was the inventor of dynamite, went on to establish the Nobel Prizes, funded in large part by the blood and sweat of the Russian masses, and still serving as a purveyor of Western imperialist hegemony.
He's not
Nobel's
wrong.
dynamite company later operated under the IG Farben, a major donor and partner of the Nazis, producing the poison gas used in concentration camps and part of the anti-Soviet counter-revolution. But the Nobels struggled to sell Russian oil abroad because there was no reliable transport route. This pushed the construction of massive rail lines, which was funded especially by French capitalists, foremost among them the Rothschild family, who was also heavily invested in the Baku oil fields. Other powerful Western firms and families soon joined and built massive fortunes from the plunder of Russia's resources and labor. Those came predominantly from France and Belgium, but also from Germany, Britain, or the US. This left Russia's empire heavily indebted to foreign capital. But as usual, this debt fell on the backs of the vast majority of the poor people. And it would be this threat posed to capitalist wealth by Bolshevik nationalization and debt cancellation that would compel countless Western countries to invade the country in order to crush the revolution. The revolutionary figures and their personal lives covered in this series are of course important, but these have to be seen in the context of this new reality. Without rising capitalism in Russia, there would be no working class, and without the working class, there is no working class struggles. And without working class struggles, there can be no communist revolutionaries with any significance. Whereas bourgeois democracy is the ideal political form of capitalism, absolute monarchies are typical for feudal class societies. However, while the monarchies had been abolished in much of Western Europe, Russia remained under the outmoded and brutal autocracy of the Romanov dynasty. So this decaying system gave rise to a whole generation of thinkers disillusioned with Tsarist power. Many of these thinkers, commonly, though often misleadingly, branded as nihilists, launched fierce critiques of all authority and demanded revolutionary change. Foremost among them was Nikolai Chernyshevsky, often referred to as an important utopian socialist and the founder of Narodism, which we introduced in the last video. He received high praise by Marx and the Russian Marxists for being important in exercising a revolutionary influence, the idea of the struggle of the masses for the overthrow of all the old authorities. Just a year after the Emancipation Edict, he was sentenced to death. In prison, he wrote his famous novel, What Is to Be Done?, which was an immense inspiration to later revolutionaries. Among them, Vladimir Ulyanov, who will soon write a crucial political pamphlet with the same title. Seeing the brutal conditions of industrial workers, the Narodniks believed that Russia should avoid the capitalist phase entirely, which they associated with negative Western influence. They idealized the peasantry, their communal way of life, that could form the basis for a uniquely Russian path to socialism without passing through brutal capitalism, as many Marxists envisioned. It was uncontroversial among most Russian Marxists that Russia, like other societies, passes through the historical modes of production, successive stages in how people organize labor, property, and class relations. This notion of stages will remain very important throughout the debates we'll talk about in this series. The Narodnik intellectuals wanted to overcome their isolation as educated, privileged members of society and connect with the vast majority living in the countryside, leading to the famous Going to the People movement in the 1870s, to live among the peasants and to incite them toward revolution. So the idea was that they go to people to tell them that their system is morally superior, easily convincing the peasants, which are then on board to change society. The notion that political change happens...
So funny that we were mentioning Marxism and then this happens. It's like, this is literally his whole entire political ideology. We found it. We found it, chat.
Mainly in this way is also a normal instinct among newly politicized leftists, since this explanation of change is conditioned by the dominant consciousness in our liberal society, namely that change happens primarily through the marketplace of ideas and peaceful discourse. Many Narodniks, therefore, adopted a version of the great man theory introduced in the last part, as they believed that the peasantry could not do any of this on their own, but that it needed outstanding personalities to achieve transformation. Friedrich Engels explained the difference between utopian and scientific socialism. Utopian socialists, he said, think that socialism is an accidental discovery of this or that ingenious brain, and not a stage that necessarily arises out of real conditions. Marx and Engels mocked the unscientific view that the genius sociologist, quote, has now arisen, that the truth has now been clearly understood is not an inevitable event following of necessity in the chains of historical development, but a mere happy accident. He might just as well have been born 500 years earlier, and might then have spared humanity 500 years of error, strife, and suffering. In their view, the idea
what
that
Marx is saying is that socialism arises because of the stages of history and material conditions. Not socialism is the idea that some guy invented.
people will begin to implement a utopia independent of the course of history and the concrete contradictions between the classes is like trying to invent YouTube before the internet exists. There are many manifestations of...
And by the way, chat, I'm not telling you to criticize people in other people's chats. I'm allowed to criticize people here, but if you go into other people's chats to be a piece of shit, then that's not a good idea. You're just going to end up alienating us from other people that we actually like. Because we don't want to be seen as drama or as, you know, contentious or can't get along with people. Don't hop chats. It's bad form. And I'll probably end up banning you here. So don't do that. That being said, you should defend people who are being attacked by pieces of shit.
Of utopian socialism today as well. Some of them include attempts to shift the idea of revolution from taking power to simply reimagining capitalism in day-to-day life. Modern-day so-called socialists like public intellectual John Holloway argue that capitalism is something that we create every day, so we should just stop creating it. If we all stayed in bed tomorrow, capitalism would cease to exist. It's a bit like the idea of simply convincing as many people as possible to launch a general strike, as if persuasion alone could substitute for the necessary material and organizational conditions. Holloway even goes as far as to dismiss all previous decades of revolutionary transformations made by hundreds of millions of people because these experiments didn't work out in the end anyway, without really providing good explanations of what exactly did and didn't work, preventing us from learning from history, drawing conclusions and using them to guide future action.
Well, the problem with learning from history is you've got to learn history. Man on the left, thank you for the 521. The process of learning, as it is an exertion, Like, why don't I have gigantic bulging biceps? Well, the answer is because I haven't done enough curls. That's the answer, right? So if you want, because doing curls is an exertion. So learning from history is an intellectual exertion. You have to read about shit and you have to internalize it and you have to remember it. And then you have to synthesize that information with other information. That's a lot of work. What if I just saw a tweet and then shot from the hip off of whatever felt good in the moment? It seems a lot more fun to me.
Imagine some dude at the physics department that decides to ignore all existing theories and previous experiments, and, instead of standing on the shoulders of giants and move from there, proclaims to reinvent physics entirely from scratch. This kind of leftist reinventors of wheels are shaped by the dominant liberal ideology that treats individual brilliance as more important than collective creation. I hope this difference between utopian and scientific socialism will become clearer later in this video, as it is key in grasping the science
I love this
of
video
revolution.
so much. This is good. This is so good.
The Narodniks' romantic strategy quickly fell apart as they were arrested en masse, often at the request of the peasants themselves, who were mostly illiterate and didn't get what these aristocrat intellectuals were babbling about. As their approach proved ineffective, some disillusioned and impatient Narodniks adopted a more radical strategy by turning to revolutionary terrorism to free Russia. History is too slow, concludes one activist. In 1878, Vera Zasulich, a radical young student from a noble family, attempts to kill the police chief of St. Petersburg. In a sensational surprise, and against all expectations, the jury finds her not guilty, and she flees to Switzerland. A year later, a new group is born, Narodnaya
It's like
Volia,
Luigi's trial coming up, chat.
People's Will,
Because he
which
didn't
believed
do it, he was framed.
that through propaganda of the deed, they would be lifting the revolutionary spirit of the people and its faith in the success of the cause. And after multiple attempts, they take their most desired prize. In Switzerland, Vera Zasulich begins to rethink the strategy based on assassinations and starts questioning Narodism in general, and sends letters to Karl Marx himself, asking him whether the Russian peasant commune could serve as a basis for the transition to socialism, making the stage of capitalism unnecessary, saying this would be a matter of life and death. Marx replied and said his analysis in Capital described how capitalism arose in Western Europe, not necessarily everywhere. He emphasized that the fate of the peasant commune was not predetermined and depended on Russia's social and political conditions. This exchange showed that Marx's theory of historical change was not rigid and mechanically Eurocentric. Over time, as he began to focus extensively on non-Western societies, he began to recognize that different societies could take somewhat different paths to socialism. He, for instance, began to change his opinion on the revolutionary potential in Russia. At first he thought there was no such potential, and later thought there was indeed. In any case, Zasulich slowly but surely turned to Marxism. In the Swiss city of Geneva, along with former Narodnik Georgy Plekhanov and with former Russian anarchist Pavel Axelrod, they founded the Emancipation of Labor, a small but widely read Russian exile circle and the first proper Marxist group in Russia. Ulyanov looked up to Plekhanov as his guide and intellectual mentor. Their disagreements were not that important in those early years. However, this would change over time. In 1881, Narodnaya Volia blew up the carriage of Tsar Alexander II, but he survived, shouting, "Thank God." But then another attacker threw a bomb, saying, "It is too early to thank God," and the Tsar...
Oh, it's too early to thank God. Oh, as you threw a bomb. What? We need to make this movie. What the fuck? How is this not made into a movie?
finally died. The Narodniks believed that this would show to the peasants that the Tsar was not a supernatural being commissioned by God, but that he was a mortal like everyone else. Of course, the reality was that the Tsar was quickly replaced, but Tsarism...
The point of Tsarism is not the Tsar. The point of monarchy is not the king. The point of them is the established hereditary transfer of power without conflict. You kill a Tsar, there's another person set up to be the Tsar. The moment the bullet enters the skull of the previous Tsar, there's a new Tsar. The moment the bullet enters the head or the heart of a CEO, there's a new CEO. The system is what creates czars, and the system is what creates CEOs. So you don't, to destroy these systems, it's not about individual acts of violence. That's ineffective. It must be a collective societal rejection of the system.
Itself was not. As a consequence of this action, the new Tsar, Alexander III, who was even more conservative than his father, unleashes brutal repression. He eliminates people's will through a campaign of executions and establishes the foundations of the fierce and notorious secret police, the Okhrana, to destroy revolutionary politics once and for all, a notorious, powerful intelligence agency that will play a big part in the coming revolution. The autocracy's propaganda spread the narrative that the murder of the Tsar was a Jewish conspiracy of nobles that killed him because he had freed the peasants, leading to massive police expansion and bloody pogroms against Jewish communities. The narrative that leftist revolutionaries were part of a Jewish plot to undermine Christianity and the old order would remain a potent story for the counter-revolution throughout the next century. But the remaining Narodniks were not chilling, and again aimed for the new Tsar's head to spark a mass uprising. But in March of 1887, the reorganized police proved its efficacy and uncovers the assassination plot. 5 young student activists are hanged, among them the chief ideologist and chemist of the group, the 21-year-old Alexander Ulyanov, who happens to be the big brother of Vladimir Ulyanov. This had a profound and lasting impact on the teenage Vladimir, who was devastated. The death of his older brother had sparked his lifelong quest to decimate the empire. Vladimir Ulyanov was rejected at various universities for being the brother of a death-sentenced terrorist, but he eventually barely managed to get into Kazan University at age 17 to study law. But a few weeks later, he was expelled for taking part in student political activity and was exiled to his mother's small country estate, where his older sister Anna was also put under house arrest, suspected of being associated with Alexander's politics. Anna later was actively involved in the October Revolution, just like Maria, her and Vladimir's younger sister, who will also be imprisoned and exiled for communist activity. Vladimir later remembered how the liberal neighbors of the Ulyanovs shunned them for being the family of Alexander and developed a deep hatred for their hypocrisy. In exile, he met old revolutionaries and spent his time studying obsessively in an old kitchen, especially the newly translated Capital by Karl Marx and other socialist works, instead of studying for university, just like you right now. He was so immersed in the study of Marx's works, rereading them with no options to use Google or ChatGPT to generate summaries. His wife later wrote about him that even during the days after the revolution, at critical moments, he would often say, "Let's ask Marx's advice." He then was put under constant police supervision, but was eventually permitted to take his law exams, and as the only student, obtained the highest mark on every subject, graduating with a first-class degree. Whatever one thought of him, both his admirers and opponents agreed that he was not stupid. But his graduation celebrations were soon overshadowed when his younger sister Olga died of typhoid fever at just 19. Another tragedy for the Ulyanov family. He then practiced law in Samara, defending poor peasants. This experience left him hating the class bias of the legal system, distrusting all lawyers in general, even those claiming to be Marxists, and it provided him with a highly refined bullshit detector to spot opportunism and liberalism behind leftist-sounding phrases and arguments, as we will see in more than enough instances.
Wait, this guy sounds pretty based. I kind of vibe with this.
While he had great respect for Chernyshevsky, he couldn't stand the later Narodniks. With his training in Marxism, he began to criticize their romantic strategy of going to the countryside and educating people to accept an agrarian-type socialism on a moral basis. Ulyanov said their approach was based on wishful thinking, relying on noble intentions instead of historical materialism, the real class struggle, and the laws of social and economic development that Marxism revealed. He explained that their thinking represented the individualistic, small producer, or petit bourgeois point of view, which, while still in contradiction with the big bourgeoisie, was still different from the consciousness developed by the working class. Modern large-scale industry required workers to think as a collective, recognizing the value of taking on shared responsibilities and discipline, making them capable to lead society into the next stage, one based on socialized production and the workers' leadership and the economy as a whole. Since the petty bourgeois leftist intellectual who accepts market competition as a given and sees exploitation as a moral failing rather than a structural class relation, they imagine that society can be changed through argument and ideal blueprints. Instead of grounding themselves in historical experience and the concrete struggle of the masses, they try to reason their system into existence from above. Ulyanov writes about one prominent Narodnik, but the funniest of all is that Mikhailovsky accuses Marx of not having reviewed all the known theories of the historical process. This is amusing indeed. Of what did 9/10 of these theories consist? Of purely a priori, dogmatic, abstract discourses on what is society, what is progress, and the like. Mr. Mikhailovsky's accusation is exactly similar to that of a metaphysician psychologist who has spent all his life writing investigations into the nature of the soul without knowing exactly how to explain a single psychical phenomenon, even in the simplest. Just as you cannot argue about the soul without having explained psychical processes in particular, and put particular psychical processes on a scientific footing, you can't make revolution without understanding the concrete processes in your own class society. In the 1890s, Ulyanov read passages from his early works to a St. Petersburg Marxist circle. One member who met him there for the first time said later, "I remember how it thrilled us all. Fairly widely read, they undoubtedly had a strong influence on the Marxist youth at the time." That member was a woman born into a noble but impoverished family from St. Petersburg. Her name, Nadezhda Krupskaya, soon to become Ulyanov's wife and an important Marxist revolutionary. Ulyanov strongly opposed the Narodniks opportunistically taking Marx's letter to Zasulich to confirm their worldview. He explained that Marx thought the commune could evolve into socialism only if certain historical conditions were met, which no longer existed in Russia by the 1890s. The economic reality of Russia had already changed since Marx's letter, he said. Russia's rapid industrialization was driven by massive projects like the Trans-Siberian Railway and the growth of coal, steel, and mining industries, which all depended heavily on foreign investment. Under the pseudonym Vladimir Ilyin, he wrote the first bigger work that got him clout in Marxist circles, The Development of Capitalism in Russia, where he used data to show that capitalism had already taken root in the country. He analyzed how the commune was already disintegrating, divided between rich peasants, or kulaks, who often became capitalists, and poor peasants, who often became workers, proving that capitalist relations of production were spreading naturally out of the peasant economy. Therefore, capitalism was not a mistake in moral judgment, but a real historical stage that is present in Russia, which has to be dealt with, no matter how much one disliked it. The Narodnik, who considers the bourgeoisie an accident, sees no connection between them and the state. His activity boils down to the modest and precise official liberal activity that is on par with philanthropy, for it does not seriously affect the interests and holds no terror for them at all.
One of the things that I first got pseudo-canceled for is because I said supporting charity is liberal, and that in general, for socialists, we do not seek to build these kind of networks of redistribution where we are the arbiters of who's worthy and who's not, but rather to build a democratic economic system that pre-distributes the outcomes and empowers the people, as opposed to chauvinistically or patronizes the worker, doling out benefices.
The Marxist turns his back on this hodgepodge and says that there can be no other guarantees for the future than the stern struggle of economic classes. Ulyanov would later argue that this same worldview, focused on bad leaders instead of class structures, was at the root of the historic betrayal of social democrats. Even today, many people believe that politics is simply a matter of evil or ignorant individuals making bad decisions, and that replacing them with better people or better policies will fix the system. This naturally leads to reformism, just as it did for many Narodniks. But the real point is that power doesn't just corrupt individuals. It itself is shaped by a deeper system that selects and produces the kind of people who rise within it. It's that system, based on the fundamental antagonism of owners and workers, that must be overthrown. The Narodnik sees the causes of these things in that there is little land, taxes are burdensome, and earnings are falling, i.e., in peculiarities of policy, land, taxation, industrial, and not in the peculiarities of the social organization of production, an organization from which the given policy inevitably follows. This was very important to understand for Ulyanov, since, quote, inability to understand this can lead to such absolute stupidity as that of appealing to the state as though the political system is not rooted in the economic, does not express it, does not serve it. In short, the cause, in the Marxist view, lies neither in policy, nor in the state, nor in society, but in the present system of Russia's economic organization. Or as Marx put it, the sum total of these relations of production constitutes the economic structure of society, the real foundation on which arises a legal and political superstructure, and to which correspond definite forms of social consciousness.
So basically, this is called the base of the superstructure. As you can see, the ideological superstructure depends upon the way that the economy and the relations of production and the means of production and what the commodities are. Your culture, our religion, our education systems, our legal systems, our media, our politics are all shaped by this. And you can see that in America today. Our politics has no relation to what regular people need.
Ulyanov argued similarly that the organizational focus on individual terrorism is the opposite manifestation of this impatient, petty bourgeois utopianism. It wants to move the mass.
The impatient, petty bourgeois utopianism. That's what I'm railing against. But like honestly, like the way people want us to move along by these acts of individual will, as opposed to the slow work of building structures, a civic, political arm, you know, a definite project, the frustration of reforms blocked and stifled. I don't think that is going to make people give up. I think that's going to piss people off more.
Into revolutionary politics through terror, regardless of how many people are ready for it, as a universal strategic principle above concrete developments. This does not mean that he was against militant action, however, as some like to claim, using his writings to justify a peaceful road to socialism, especially during times where reformist opportunism is the dominant trend. What is important for Ulyanov is whether an organization can guide and lead a militant working-class movement, rather than attempting to create one outside the course of historical processes. We will learn more about the Bolsheviks' militant tactics and strategy for revolution in the coming episodes, which will make this point much clearer. Although the Marxist critique proved effective and Marxism became the dominant outlook among Russian revolutionaries in the coming years, the Narodniks will remain quite relevant and would congeal into the Socialist Revolutionary Party, a major player in the coming revolutionary period. So what does all of this mean in concrete practice? It was not Greta Thunberg's activism that created the climate movement. It was climate change and the way of producing under capitalism that caused it, which made figures such as her relevant in the first place. We make our history ourselves, but in the first place under very definite assumptions and conditions. It's important to understand that it's the masses that make history. If you want to make revolution, you must realize first that it's not the Revolutionary Party which can make the transformation by itself, but the working class which fulfills its historical role. The role of professional revolutionaries is to organize and assist the struggle of the most determined and advanced members of that class through a fighting organization, which has a correct analysis of the contradictions in actual society, and which can win the hard-earned trust of the people. The communist leaders could only achieve what they did because a large section of the working class wanted change, and likewise, and crucially, the Russian masses could only confront a centralized and militarized autocracy through the existence of an organization capable to organize that fight. Many self-described Marxists in Russia claimed the Marxist doctrine was just a sociological tool to analyze class society. Ulyanov rejected this bastardization of Marxism, which was not simply an analytical instrument, but a guide for revolutionary action. But how to build such an organization rooted in scientific socialism? Or as Ulyanov will ask, what is to be done? This will be answered in the next episode. As opposed to Plekhanov's circle, which was preoccupied with writing, Ulyanov, together with other Marxists, founded a new group, not just to educate, but to agitate and assist the masses in the surging waves of protests and strikes. Among the founders was Ulyanov's close friend and collaborator, a certain Yuli Cederbaum. The close comrades would eventually part ways in a historical split that would define leftist politics in the coming decades. As was common in the Tsarist Empire, the revolutionaries would give themselves different names to dodge the secret agencies. Yuli Cederbaum calls himself Julius Martov, and Vladimir Ulyanov would henceforth be known as Vladimir Lenin.
Amazing. Guten stuff. If you're not already subscribed to Bestie Marks, what are you even doing? All right, chat. Before we go, I wanted to show you centrist TLDR News is pushing the idea that China is preparing themselves to invade.
So China has been quietly stockpiling tons of stuff, including oil, gas, and a number of in-demand metals. Unsurprisingly, this has drawn the attention of Western policymakers, with at least some of them suggesting that these stockpiles are the CCP's way of planning for an invasion of Taiwan. So in this video, we're going to try our best to figure out why China is stockpiling so much stuff, and explain why it might not necessarily be about Taiwan.
It's very clear that the Chinese method of reunification with Taiwan is to take a Hong Kong-esque approach of slow, gradual integration with mutual consent. They don't want to invade Taiwan because, first of all, that'll wreck Taiwan, and two, opens them up to too much risk. They will only do that if they determine it's the only way to protect the establishment of the CCP's authority.
The next issue of our magazine, Too Long, is coming out soon. With this issue focusing on realignment in the press, is China's ever drawn by far straight into it. Of all of China's stockpiles, the one that's drawn by far the most attention in the international press is China's ever-growing stockpile of crude oil. Now, for national security reasons, China doesn't actually publish data on its stockpiles, for crude or any other commodity. But there's a pretty strong consensus among market observers, who've noticed that China is importing more than it's refining, that the CCP has been quietly building up its oil stockpiles since really late 2024.
And that's when oil has been at a record low price, chat. So China is buying oil and stocking it up while it's very cheap. Interesting.
According to most estimates, China now has something like 1.3 billion barrels of crude oil in reserve, enough to last the Chinese economy roughly 3 months with zero further imports. This process really accelerated in the second quarter of this year, when China was adding something like 1 million barrels a day to its stockpiles, accounting for roughly 90% of global stockpiling. And at least some analysts think that stockpile-related demand from China has single-handedly kept global oil prices above the $60 a barrel mark. But it's not just oil. China has also been stockpiling a number of other commodities, including natural gas and certain metals. Again, no one knows exact figures, but a Bloomberg report from earlier this year, citing unnamed officials, claimed that the CCP had decided to build up fresh cobalt, copper, nickel, and lithium stockpiles. And a recent Economist article claimed that, since the beginning of 2024, China had built up copper, zinc, and nickel stockpiles sufficient to cover 20%, 50%, and 108% of annual demand, respectively. Unsurprisingly, this has provoked some anxiety amongst more hawkish commentators in the US, who point to China's stockpiling as evidence the CCP are preparing to invade Taiwan. To be fair, stockpiles are what you'd expect ahead of an invasion, given such an event would probably provoke a furious international backlash and massively disrupt China's trade with the rest of the world. Stockpiling would obviously help China cope with any post-invasion disruption and insulate the CCP against efforts to leverage China's trade dependencies. In this context, it's worth mentioning that China is more dependent on certain imports than you might think. China still imports many of its raw manufacturing inputs, including about 90% of its iron and a similar fraction of its copper. China also imports a lot of food. The country only became a net food importer in 2004, i.e. it imported more food than it exported. But by 2021, it had become the world's largest food importer, surpassing the US. Perhaps most significantly though, China imports a lot of its energy. Despite recent efforts to develop a domestic oil industry, China, which is the world's largest crude oil importer and the second largest crude oil consumer after the US, still imports something like 70% of its crude oil, with most of this coming via maritime trade routes into South China. This dependence on energy imports has been a long-standing anxiety for Chinese policymakers, and in 2003, CCP General Secretary Hu Jintao coined the term Malacca Dilemma to refer to China's singular reliance on the Strait of Malacca, a maritime...
Man, everybody decided to do a Malacca video after I made one. What the fuck?
Choke point connecting the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea.
Or at least I made a stream.
That could easily be shut off, immediately depriving China of something like 80% of its crude imports. This is why the CCP has tried to diversify oil imports by building more overland pipelines to Russia and other Central Asian producers. So, you get the idea. While more attention is often paid to the rest of the world's reliance on Chinese stuff, China also relies pretty heavily on the rest of the world for its own stuff. And more hawkish commentators in Washington have taken the CCP's newfound penchant for stockpiling as evidence that China is secretly prepping for an invasion of Taiwan, and the accompanying disruption to international trade. But while this might be one possible explanation, there are at least 3 other reasons China might want to build up its stockpiles. The first is to reduce Trump's leverage in the trade war. The more China stockpiles, the less they need to import in the short term, which reduces Trump's leverage in the ongoing trade negotiation. This would also explain why the stockpiling apparently began last year, when it became clear that Trump was returning for a second term and that he wanted to renegotiate the terms of the US-China relationship. It's also possible that China is rushing to import as much discounted oil as it can from Russia, Iran and Venezuela, which today account for something like 20% of all China's oil imports and are all under some form of US sanction, before the US either tightens sanctions, as has happened recently with Russia, or invades, as might happen with Venezuela. The second reason is reserve diversification. Every country has foreign exchange reserves to provide a buffer against economic crises. Historically, US dollar and dollar-denominated assets accounted for a large percentage of all global reserves, including China's. But Trump's unorthodox policies have undermined their appeal as safe assets, which is why China and other countries have recently moved out of dollars and into more traditional safe assets, like gold. Again, no one knows exactly how big China's gold reserves are, but China has been importing a lot of gold recently, helping push prices to all-time highs. China's oil stockpiling could be another form of reserve diversification, helping China bolster its reserves with a commodity that it can easily sell or consume in times of crisis. Third, and finally, it could just be good for the Chinese economy. Stockpiling, and then releasing stockpiles when prices get too high, allows the CCP to essentially guarantee stable commodity prices within China, which helps Chinese manufacturers by reducing uncertainty, and can even help the CCP turn a tidy profit, if they get to buy low and sell high.
They're so much better at this than we are. It's so funny. Like, oil's kind of cheap. We should buy a bunch to make sure that America can't, sanction us. And they just do it. It's very funny.
China has form here. The CCP has a national pork reserve, for instance, to smooth out pork prices over holidays and other periods of high demand. To anyone that finds the idea of a government intervening in commodity markets offensive to their free market sensibilities, it's worth noting that the Biden administration did something similar with the US Strategic Petroleum Reserve in 2022 and 2023, which ultimately smoothed out global oil prices while allowing the Treasury to turn a profit. All in all, even if China's stockpiles aren't necessarily proof that the CCP are about to invade Taiwan, they're still something to keep an eye on, if only for policymakers interested in unorthodox ways to boost domestic manufacturing. Now, that's quite a lot of information we've thrown your way, and that's after we've simplified it down for you. So you can only imagine how overwhelming it is to sift through the hundreds of outlets reporting on it online, find out what happened. Luckily for all of us, there's a
ground news!
Website and app that collects all those articles and puts them all in one easy-to-access place.
Oh, God. Chat, remember, if you are in Tennessee, make sure you get out there and vote. We need you. Guys, gals, non-binary pals, we need you out there voting. Make sure you are voting. Boot! Okay. All right, I'm kidding. I'm going to actually call it a little bit early today. Because, chat, VO is doing a sponsored stream. And so, if you could do me a solid, and keep a tab open for VO, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. I would appreciate that. If you could do me that solid, because VO is doing a sponsored stream. I think she's playing a game. She didn't really tell me. She just said sponsored stream. I can't hear you. So please do me a solid. Hang out, help us get her a little bit of an extra cut. Thank you, everybody. I really do appreciate all of you. Here's all my links. Make sure you follow me. The vibes are immaculate. We are going to fucking win. I am excited. And hold on to your butts, because the world is coming in our direction. I can feel the pendulum swinging. So keep your head up. Get involved in your local organizations. I'll see you all soon. Stay safe together. Free Palestine. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Normal time. 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. You're on the Central Committee. Peace out, guys.